What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto is weak and helpless in the Chunin exams? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. Ino groaned as she walked down the road. Her feet were killing her, her hair was a mess, and she just wanted to lie down and pass out. She knew that everyone else in the group felt the same. They had just finished a grueling mission that they were completely unprepared for. It was supposed to be a simple C-class assignment: escort a drunken bridge builder home. It quickly spiraled out of control when trained assassins ambushed Team 10 and very nearly killed all of them. It was only thanks to Shikamaru's quick thinking that allowed them to trap the mist ninjas. After learning the truth from the prisoners and their client, Asuma decided to continue the mission, but also call in for backup. 2 days later, Team 8 and Team Guy arrived. Team 8's tracking and reconnaissance abilities would protect against future attacks, and Team Guy's extra experience would provide the muscle in a fight. With 3 teams, they were far better equipped to take on the Demon of the Mist and his strange ice apprentice, though the two still managed to slip away after the initial encounter. The following days were spent either watching the bridge or training, waiting for the rogue ninja's return. Ino didn't like Team Guy at all. The sensei and his clone, Rock Lee, were exuberant to the point of insanity. The constant yelling and hugging had quickly frayed the Yamanaka's nerves. Neji Hyuga was annoyingly pompous and seemed to have something against Hinata. Ino caught him glaring at the heiress more than once. Though what the meek girl could have done to offend him was beyond Ino. The last member, Tenten, was nice enough, but seemed offended whenever Ino complained about what the moisture was doing to her hair. Still, despite their quirks, Ino had to admit that Team Guy knew what they were doing. While the Jonin focused on Zabuza, Team Guy quickly took charge and they were essential in taking down Zabuza's apprentice. Ino didn't want to think about what would have happened if Team 10 had fought the Ice Maiden alone. With the apprentice finished and the senseis taking down Zabuza, it seemed that the mission was pretty much over. Then Gato arrived. With a small army of mercenaries in tow, Gato intended to walk across the bridge and raid the town for all it was worth. The Leaf Shinobi were the first, last, and only line of defense between them and the town. So the killing began. While the mercenaries were numerous, they were little more than thugs. To the trained ninja, even mere rookies, they stood no chance. Ino had never killed before, and she doubted anyone outside of the Jonin, and possibly Team Guy had either. On that bridge she personally ended the life of 5 different men and watched numerous others die as well. Horrible people who intended to pillage and plunder, but human beings nonetheless. Once Gato's army was wiped out, the greedy little coward quickly surrendered. Without his interference, the bridge was quickly constructed and the mission ended. That's where Ino currently found herself, trudging along the dirt road home, the deaths she caused weighing heavily on her mind. Ino wasn't stupid. Having come from a ninja clan, she knew that she would have to kill eventually. Her father had sat her down numerous times during the academy to explain just what kind of life she was committing to. Despite that, no amount of talking can properly prepare someone for the real deal. Ino wanted to kick and scream. She wanted to curl up in a ball and cry. She wanted to just make horrible feeling in her stomach go away. Ino was pulled out of her inner turmoil by Asuma. "It's already getting dark out. We might as well set up camp here." Everyone began to pull out his or her camping necessities when Tenten spoke up. "Hey, what's that?" Everyone followed her gaze to see lights coming out of the tree line. Wordlessly, Neji activated his Byakugan to get a better look. "It's an inn," he said after a moment. "A pretty big one at that. It's well lit, has lots of space, and looks brand new. You know, I've heard of a new inn around this area. I can't recall the name, but it's supposed to be a wonderful place to stay." Kurenai chimed in. Ino's voice came out as a whisper. Do you think we could stay there?" All eyes focused on her, causing the young mind walker to blush and focus on her bag. Asuma, Kurenai, and Guy were all shooting glances at each other, silently weighing the pros and cons. Most of the children in front of them had just recently experienced their first kill, a harsh moment for any ninja. The sensei decided that their students deserved some comfort tonight. "Of course we can," Asuma said with a warm smile. Ino gave a weak one in return and began to gather up her things, with the others quickly joining her. They worked their way through the trees to find a cobblestone path lit with small stone lanterns on either side. Following it, the shinobi soon came upon the inn. It was a 3-story building made almost entirely out of wood. The surrounding trees formed a curved wall around the inn, leaving only one way in through the front path. The Leaf Ninja entered through the sliding front door into the main floor. The main floor was open and bright with a large staircase leading to the upper floors in the back and a fountain depicting a stone cherry blossom tree draining water onto a sleeping fox in the center of the area. The entire floor was wooden, save for the entrance area, which was stone for easy cleaning. "Hello, and welcome to the Fox Blossom Inn. Will all of you be staying?" Ino turned to her left. Sitting behind a wooden receptionist desk was Sakura? Ino couldn't believe it. The woman sitting behind the desk appeared to be in her late 20s. She was dressed in an elegant red kimono with golden highlights. Her bright pink hair was done up in a bun with 2 ornate chopsticks stuck through it. To top it off, she was wearing a pair of black glasses with a jade ornament dangling from the left side. Despite all this, Ino knew she was staring at her former best friend. Ino hadn't seen Sakura since the team placements. Ino had stewed with rage when she learned that Sakura was going to be on the same team as Sasuke, only to later find out that Team 7 failed their Jonin's exam. Upon learning this, Ino immediately went to Sakura's house. Whether Ino did this to rub it in, yell at her for getting Sasuke failed, or comfort her former friend, Ino wasn't entirely sure. When she got there, however, Ino learned from Sayuri Haruno that Sakura had left home a week ago and no one had seen her since. Likewise for Naruto and Sasuke. When Ino talked to her father about it, Inoichi brought it up to the Hokage at a council meeting. Apparently, all 3 of them decided to give up being ninja and wanted to search for other career options outside the village, but still within Fire Country. The Hokage allowed this as long as they sent in regular reports regarding their progress. That had been nearly 3 months ago. Now Ino was staring at what could only be described as an adult Sakura. Shikamaru put his hand on Ino's shoulder. "Come on, Ino. This can't be." The woman suddenly interrupted. "Well, hello, Ino. Sorry, I didn't see you at first." Wow, 3 entire teams of Leaf Ninja. Welcome. While Team Guy just seemed confused, Teams 10 and 8 were staring in shock. "Is that really you, Sakura?" Ino asked. Older Sakura gave the blonde a warm smile. "Yes, it's me. How have you been?" "How have I been? Here's a better question. Where have you been?" Sakura looked thoughtful for a moment before responding. "Well, after Naruto, Sasuke, and I failed Kakashi's test, the 3 of us sat down and decided that being ninja just wasn't for us. Instead, we decided to look for other pursuits. We found this rundown old place and bought it for a real bargain. Then we renovated and opened for business. We're actually making quite a bit." "How could you afford to buy and renovate this place?" Kurenai asked. Sakura shrugged. "The Uchiha clan funds really helped." Asuma was horrified. "You've been stealing from one of the Leaf's founding clans?" he demanded. Sakura rolled her eyes. "Of course not. Sasuke agreed to pay for the inn and renovations. He gets the majority of the money for working here anyway." Ino's mind suddenly latched onto what Sakura was saying. "Wait a minute, you've been here alone with Sasuke for over 3 months?" The blonde's trauma was forgotten as she found herself in familiar territory, arguing with Sakura about Sasuke. "Not exactly. Naruto is here too and we have a few new employees running about." Ino was about to retort when Shino spoke. "If you're really Sakura, then why do you look like an adult?" Hinata and Neji both nodded. "It's not an illusion, my Byakugan can't see through it." Sakura perked up. "Oh, this isn't any illusion, it's a shapeshift." Kurenai interjected. "That's not possible. The transformation technique can make you look like another person, but it can't actually change you. Physically altering your own shape is impossible." Sakura chuckled to herself before answering. "Kurenai, we live in a world where people can walk on water, see through walls, read minds, and even bend the very elements to their whim. I assure you, there's no such thing as impossible. I'm rather fond of a certain saying, impossible is just another way of saying you haven't tried hard enough yet." Kurenai wasn't sure what to say to that, so Asuma took over. "Even if you manage to develop a real shapeshift, you're violating the law by using jutsu as a civilian." Sakura clicked her tongue and adopted a lecturing pose. "First, I didn't create this technique, Naruto did. Second, normally you'd be right, but according to the village charter, any and all members of the Uchiha clan are allowed to learn and perform jutsu, regardless of civilian status. Shikamaru's world-class brain quickly put the pieces together. Are you saying that Sasuke? Sakura cut him off. Inducted Naruto and I into the Uchiha clan? Yes. As honorary members of the clan, all three of us can use as much jutsu as we want. Sakura glanced down at her watch. Now that that's out of the way, are you all going to be staying here? Yes, Asuma said, quickly cutting off his blonde student from asking more questions. How much is it per room? Sakura waved her hand dismissively. Please, for shinobi of the Leaf Village like yourselves? It's on the house. Sakura snapped her fingers. A small vent above her head popped open and 3 small forms dropped out. The assembled ninja were surprised to find themselves staring at 6-year-old versions of Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura. All 3 were dressed in plain, slightly dirty clothes, most likely from crawling around in the ventilation system. Sakura ignored the confused looks of Leaf Ninja and focused on the 3 she had called. Saku, please escort these guests to the luxury suites. Naru, Sasu, I need you two to find Mr. Uzumaki and Mr. Uchiha and inform them that we have teams 8, 10, and Guy staying with us. The tiny doppelgangers saluted. Yes, Ms. Haruno. They chorused together. Naru walked up the wall and pulled himself back into the vent he came from. Sasu ran towards the large staircase and pulled open a trapdoor beneath the steps, quickly dropping inside. Saku, meanwhile, stood in front of the Leaf Ninjas and held out her arm towards the stairs. If you all would please follow me? The tiny pink-haired girl turned and headed towards the stairs. Sakura, wait, what's going on? Ino demanded. The older Sakura got to her feet, glancing at her watch. I'm sorry, Ino. I have work to get done. You'd better follow Saku. This place is easy to get lost in. With that, she vanished in a swirl of pink flower petals. The gathered ninja just stared in shock for a moment before they heard an annoyed sigh and turned to see Saku impatiently tapping her foot on the bottom stair. Not sure what else to do, they followed her up the stairs. As they followed the seemingly young girl through the elaborate halls, Kurenai decided to get the ball rolling again. So, the clone jutsu? The shadow clone jutsu, mixed with a shapeshift, Saku corrected. How else do you think the 3 bosses run this entire inn practically by themselves? Why do you refer to Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura as being different people? Asuma asked. The tiny clone shrugged. There are as many as 30 clones of each boss running around at any given time. To avoid confusion, different clones assigned to different jobs are given slightly different names and appearances, like Saku as opposed to Sakura. I'm in this form because it's easier to get around through the vents to deliver messages or report issues. At the end of the day, I'm still Sakura Haruno, but I'm just one of many. You 3 have mastered an A-rank jutsu? Guy asked, shocked at the amount of skill it would take to create so many clones for so long. Saku, however, shook her head. Definitely not. Mr. Uchiha and Ms. Haruno are simply proficient with the shadow clone jutsu. Mr. Uzumaki is the one who has mastered, perfected, and improved the technique. Ino gave a derisive snort. As if that idiot could ever even learn something so complicated, he couldn't even do regular clones. Saku suddenly stopped dead in her tracks, nearly causing Asuma to run into her. The young clone slowly turned towards Ino. Her green eyes, formerly bright and joyful, were now cold and menacing. The jade orbs locked onto the blonde mind walker. Naruto is my very close friend, Yamanaka. 100 of you wouldn't be worth a quarter of him. Green chakra suddenly erupted around Saku in a vortex. Insult him again, and you'll have to answer to me. Eyes wide with fear, Ino desperately stuttered out an apology. Seemingly satisfied, Saku closed her eyes and reined in her raging chakra. She tilted her head towards the ceiling. I just got a little angry. I'm fine. Those who followed her gaze saw a pair of blue eyes within a vent staring down at them before vanishing. Saku gestured back down the hall. I apologize for my outburst. Please follow me. As the guide led them down the hall, the Leaf Ninja were talking furiously amongst themselves. What the hell was that? Ino whispered. I have no idea, it was scary though. Choji replied. Wasn't she in your academy class? Tenten asked. She never showed off anything like that. Kiba said, trying to comfort a terrified Akamaru. In the academy she would usually just fly off the handle and deck someone. Sakura could never use her chakra visibly like that. Meanwhile, the Jonin were having a conversation of their own. How is it possible for a girl that young to have so much chakra? She has more than we do. Kurenai demanded. She knows how to use it too. Guy said, grimly. She carefully channeled her chakra into her pores and allowed it to overflow like a typhoon. It seemed wild and uncontrolled, but it was meticulously calculated. What I want to know is how Kakashi let her fail. Asuma said. To have such large chakra reserves and such incredible control should have gotten her marked as a prodigy. Perhaps her teammates dragged her down? Kurenai theorized. Asuma shook his head. Kakashi's not stupid. Lazy, but not stupid. He would have tested each of them, both as a group and individually. Even if she were holding back, which I can't think of a reason why she would, Sakura would have had to display her talents. Even if the team failed, Kakashi would have taken her to the Hokage to get her an apprenticeship. Guy seemed to ponder this. Perhaps she did intentionally hold back? Kurenai snorted. Why would she possibly do that? It could be that she decided that the life of a ninja wasn't one for her. Asuma supplied. Kurenai was unconvinced. After going through the entire academy, she just decided not to be a ninja and fail her test on purpose? Again, why? With how powerful she is, she would be a great ninja. Power isn't everything, Guy said softly. There are plenty of ninja who are exceptionally strong, only to be put in a situation they couldn't handle. Kakashi's father, the White Fang, is one such example. To this day the White Fang is considered one of the strongest ninja to ever be produced by the Leaf. Yet, despite his power, he found himself in a situation where he had to choose between saving his teammates' lives and completing the mission. Instead of following protocol, the White Fang chose to save his comrades. Even the people he saved publicly ostracized him for his choice. He lost his faith in village and in himself. He committed suicide while Kakashi was still just a boy. Kurenai, having never heard this story, was shocked. Guy continued. As I said, that is just one example of many. The Leaf is full of jaded individuals who made a wrong choice, or were just put in a no-win situation. It's entirely possible that Sakura, studious girl that she is, came across some of these people while doing research about being a ninja. It isn't hard to imagine what effect the horror stories of ninja life could have on an impressionable young girl. She probably decided that she couldn't handle life as a ninja and quit before even really beginning. Frankly, I admire her for accepting that she wasn't cut out for this life and getting out before it's too late. Kurenai was amazed that Might, Flames of Youth, Guy was able to come to such a mature and credible conclusion. Asuma, who has known Guy for much longer than Kurenai, was unsurprised. Guy was one of village's top jonin for a reason. Assuming that your theory is correct, then why wait to fail Kakashi's bell test? Why not just talk to her academy teacher and bow out? Asuma asked. Guy shrugged. It could be that she didn't have the nerve to just up and quit, so she made it look like she wasn't skilled enough to be a shinobi. That way, instead of having multiple people try and talk her into staying, they would all try to make her quit for her own safety. Kurenai interjected. That would be very clever, if your theory is correct. At best all we have are blind guesses. At least until we can get back to the village and ask Kakashi the exact details of the test. That brings up another point. She continued, even if Sakura intentionally held back, Naruto and Sasuke would both have had to do poorly as well. On top of that, all three of them apparently decided to quit being ninja and open this inn. For Sakura, I could understand her being dissuaded, but Sasuke's desire to kill Itachi and Naruto's dream of being Hokage borderline on obsession. I can't imagine any horror story stopping either of them. So why would they quit as well? I honestly haven't a clue. Guy admitted. Here we are. Saku spoke up. She gestured to 3 doors. Each suite has a central living area and 4 separate bedrooms. Each team can have their own suite. Press the intercom button if you need anything. Dinner is at 9. With that, the young clone evaporated in a puff of smoke. Without much else to do, the teams retired to their respective rooms. Scene break. Oh God, that felt good. Ino sighed as she walked down the hall. A series of murmured agreements came from the others around her. They had just gotten out of the hot spring bath and they all felt wonderful. The hot springs were massive stone basins carved into the ground. Decorative stones and statues littered the area around the springs. Various trees and bamboo plants were transplanted to give the feeling of being lost in the woods. Between each pool were high fences that guaranteed privacy. While indoor baths were available, the fences also surrounded the entire hot springs area, allowing the baths to be outside, under the stars. The changing areas provided a series of scented soaps, shampoos, and bath salts. After taking their pick of cleaning lotions, the guys and girls went to their separate bathing areas. After a long and luxurious soak, the Leaf Ninja found their clothes cleaned, dried, and pressed waiting for them. Clean, dressed, and hungry, the shinobi made their way towards dinner. Following a series of signs, they found themselves at the dining hall. Once again, the collective group was amazed. The dining hall was a massive room. The walls were painted a lush maroon with golden lining. The far wall held a mural depicting an orange fox running through a field with a blue wolf and a pink tiger. Tables littered the hall, covered in snow-white cloth and deep blue plates. A truly enormous crystal chandelier hung from the center of the ceiling, nearly 12 feet across. Smaller versions of the chandelier were hung along the edges of the room. "Hi, I'm Sasaki. Party of 12? For the second time that night, the group was thrown for a massive loop. They were staring at a young woman. She had long, dark blue hair done up in a ponytail, though some strands were loose to frame her face. Her eyes were coal black and she wore a kind smile. She was dressed in a form-fitting black pants suit with a white-collared shirt under her black vest and a black tie. Tiny red fans that the Jonin recognized as the Uchiha clan symbol hung from her earlobes. "Sasuke?" Ino asked. The girl giggled. "No, it's Sasaki. Don't feel bad, it's a common mistake." Ino quickly became the group's spokesperson. What are you doing using that idiot's perverted jutsu?" she demanded. Sasaki's eyes narrowed as the smile left her face. "I ask that you please refrain from insulting Mr. Uzumaki. He is one of the respected owners of this establishment." The girl's eyes turned red. "And I don't appreciate little blonde brats slandering his name or his accomplishments." Before Ino could respond, Sasaki's eyes returned to normal and she turned on her heel. "Now, if you'll please follow me, I'll show you to your seats." The group warily followed the very obviously female Uchiha to a large circular table, passing other patrons who were enjoying their food along the way. Once everyone was seated, Sasaki clapped her hands. "Right, I'll be right back with your food." Asuma spoke up. "But we haven't ordered yet. We haven't even seen a menu." Sasaki shook her head. "There's no need. Choji will have the full rack of barbecue ribs, medium rare. Shikamaru will have the grilled fish over linguine, lightly seared. Ino will have the tossed chicken salad with extra olives." Sasaki continued down the line, naming everyone's favorite dish. The ninja were all speechless. "If there isn't anything else, I'll get your food." Soon, each ninja had a mouth-watering plate of food in front of them. Sasaki grinned as she watched them dig into the food. "Delicious, isn't it? Naruto takes great pride in his food." That made the group pause in their consumption. "Naruto cooked this? I didn't know he could cook." Ino muttered. Sasaki's grin turned into a cruel smirk. "I think it's safe to say that there's a lot you don't know about any of us, Ino." "Speaking of things we don't know," Kurenai began, idly wiping the corners of her mouth with her napkin. "We were wondering what made you decide to quit being a ninja and open this inn." Sasaki stared at Kurenai for a moment, making the woman slightly uncomfortable, before closing her eyes and sighing. "To be honest, I didn't like who I was becoming." When asked to clarify, Sasaki shook her head ruefully. "Before testing us, Kakashi asked us what our dreams and desires were. I racked my brain and do you know what I came up with? I wanted to kill my brother. That's it. That's all I could think of. Without realizing it, killing my brother became my single reason for living. Think about it for a minute, even if I did succeed in killing Itachi, then what? I would be lost without a purpose or reason for living." Sasaki smirked. It didn't reach her eyes, "So you know what? I decided that I wouldn't give the bastard the satisfaction. He told me to devote my life hatred and vengeance? Well, fuck him. I won't live for him or for anyone else. I'm only going to live for me and what I want, not what he wants." The young woman sighed. "The first step in separating myself from the path of an avenger was to quit being a ninja and find a new calling in life. When Sakura approached me with the offer to open this inn, I took it. I originally only intended to stay until I could figure out what to do with my life, but I like here." Sakura, Naruto, and I are in charge, and it's actually a lot of fun. There's a lot of hard work as well, but that just makes working here all the more satisfying. You get what you put into it, you know? But above all else, I have Naruto and Sakura with me. As long as I have them, I don't need anything else. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other clients to attend to. With that, the girl turned on her heel and left the ninja to their food and their thoughts. Scene break. After finishing their exquisite meal, the group decided to head to bed. While they all wanted to stay, for one reason or another, they still needed to report their mission to the Leaf Village. So they had to leave early the next morning. They made their way towards the main lobby, intending to head up the main staircase to the suites. They were surprised to see a man with a head of spiky blonde hair sitting at the reception desk, writing in a ledger. Ino was about to call out to Naruto when two men walked in. Without looking up from his writing, Naruto spoke. "Hello and welcome to the Fox Blossom Inn. How long will you be staying with us? You need to come with us, Naruto." Only then did the blonde look up from his ledger. The two men were dressed in black cloaks, decorated with red clouds. The man who spoke was surprisingly short. His long black hair was pulled into a ponytail. Odd lines along his nose descended from his eyes. His red, Sharingan eyes. The other man towered over his companion. His skin was pale blue and looked rough to the touch. 3 lines similar to gills adorned his cheek under both eyes. His mouth was split into a wide grin, showing off razor-sharp teeth. His blue-green hair was held up in spikes by his headband, which like his companions, had a horizontal slash through it. Naruto sighed and set down his pen as he got to his feet. As he reached his full height, the Leaf Ninja realized Naruto was also in an adult form, dressed in a loose black and orange kimono. "Akatsuki, right?" The two nodded. "And you're here for the Kyuubi?" They nodded again. "And there's no chance of just sitting down, having a drink, and talking this out?" Another pair of nods. A grin spread across Naruto's face. "Good." Naruto thrust out his arm, causing the two S-ranked missing ninjas to be flung off their feet by an invisible force and sent flying out the door. Naruto performed a quick 360 twirl on his heel. His entire outfit changed as he spun. The kimono morphed into a pair of black pants, combat boots, and a black shirt decorated with orange flames along the bottom and the sleeves. Naruto turned to Saku and Sasu who were passing by. "Tell Sakura and Sasuke that I'm going to go deal with some rowdy clients." With that, he leapt out the doors after the two ninjas. The Leaf Jonin pulled themselves out of their stupor and prepared to follow Naruto. Two people appeared in front of them, cutting them off. The Jonin realized they were looking at the older version of Sakura from earlier and an older, male version of Sasuke. "What are you two doing?" Asuma demanded. "We need to go help Naruto." Sasuke snorted. "Naruto can handle himself. You would just get in his way." That was Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki, two of the most dangerous men in the world. "If we don't help Naruto, he's dead," Asuma insisted. Sasuke glanced out the doorway behind him and gestured towards the fight. "He looks like he's doing fine to me." The Jonin rushed out the door, with the genin following them, only to stop and stare at the spectacle before them. Naruto wasn't just winning, he was cleaning house. Kisame launched a giant water shark at Naruto, while Itachi shot a giant fireball from the opposite side. Naruto began spinning in place, a vortex of wind forming around him. Instead of being disrupted by Naruto's technique, the miniature tornado allowed both attacks to slip past Naruto. Kisame and Itachi suddenly found themselves in the direct line of fire from their partner's jutsu. The two rogue ninja leapt away to avoid the attacks, which was exactly what Naruto wanted. Now that the two were separated, he could focus on them one at a time. The blonde appeared behind Kisame, causing the former mist ninja's eyes to widen. The swordsman turned sharply, intending to shave off Naruto's legs with Samahata. The blonde grabbed Kisame's arm, halting the attack, and slammed his knee into the swordsman's gut. The blow knocked the wind out of Kisame's lungs and caused him to drop the sharkskin sword. With Kisame hunched over and gasping for breath, Naruto raised his hand. Wind whirled around his fist in a cyclone. The blue-eyed innkeeper slammed his hand into Kisame's neck. The vicious wind tore through the former mist ninja's rough skin, severing his head from his shoulders. Naruto dropped the corpse and turned to face Itachi. The Uchiha's eyes morphed into a black pinwheel. Mangekyo Sharingan. Tsukuyo. Itachi's proclamation turned in a scream of pain as Naruto appeared in front of him and slammed 2 fingers directly into Itachi's eye sockets, burying them all the way to the knuckle. Naruto grabbed Itachi's neck and lifted him by the throat. He leaned in close to the Uchiha's ear. "Next time, have the decency to come in person." A sickening crack sounded out as Naruto snapped Itachi's spine. As he dropped the body to the ground, 4 clones of Naruto appeared next to him. "Clean up this mess," he commanded. The clones nodded and vanished, taking the bodies with them. Naruto turned to see Asuma, Kurenai, and Guy all crouched in battle-ready positions. The Jinchuriki arched an eyebrow. "Is there a problem here? I want to know what's going on, right now." Asuma demanded. "I don't care if you're the greatest prodigy who ever lived. No 13-year-old without any ninja experience could kill an S-ranked missing ninja, much less 2. Naruto glanced at Sakura and Sasuke. The Leaf Jonin got the distinct impression that a conversation was being carried on in silence between the 3. After a moment, Sasuke and Sakura both nodded, though they seemed reluctant. Naruto heaved a sigh and spoke. "You're absolutely right, Asuma. An ordinary 13-year-old ninja couldn't do what I just did. What you need to understand though, is that I am far from ordinary and nowhere near 13 years old. In fact, I'm actually far older than you." "What?" Naruto sighed again. "This will take a long time to explain. Why don't we retire to our room? Why should we trust you? Asuma, when I was a child you were often assigned to protect me. You took your job very seriously and I never felt safer than when I was under your protection. I know it was you under that eagle mask. For the sake of the nights you spent defending me from harm, please trust me." Asuma bit his lip, clearly warring with himself over what to do. He finally heaved a sigh and lowered his fists. "Fine, we'll listen, but if you try anything that threatens us or our students, then all bets are off." "I'd expect nothing less," Naruto said with a nod. The 12-leaf ninja and their 3 enigmatic hosts soon found themselves in a spacious living area on the top floor of the inn, seated in cushy couches. "This is our private apartment," Sasuke said as he set down a tray of drinks. "We have privacy seals set up throughout. No one will hear us here." The Uchiha plopped himself down on a couch across from the Leaf contingent, and next to Naruto and Sakura. Naruto decided to get the ball rolling. "Are you aware that in 1 month's time, the Chunin exams will be coming to the Leaf Village?" The Jonin nodded while the Genin looked confused. "During the 3rd part of the exam, the village will be invaded by a joint attack between the village hidden in the sand and the village hidden in the sound." The Leaf Ninja were shocked. "But we're allies with sand," Kurenai protested. "Recent legislation passed by the daimyo has caused a lion's share of Sand's missions to go to the Leaf instead. As such, Sand's income has drastically decreased and their economy is suffering. They're getting desperate and looking for a solution. The leader of the Sound Village is willing to offer them one," Sakura said. Guy furrowed his brow. "I've heard of a new village going by the name of Sound popping up in Rice Country, but information on them is difficult to acquire. Do you know who this leader is and why they want to attack our village?" Sasuke nodded. "I can answer both with a single word. Orochimaru." The 3 Jonin shuddered at the name, well aware of the Sanin's near-legendary capabilities. If he was leading a charge against the Leaf, then they would need to be prepared for the worst. "You know all this for a fact?" Asuma demanded. Naruto nodded. "Damn, Dad was planning on splitting the mission and monetary income with Sand to better our relationship after the Chunin exams, but I guess it's too late, especially if that snake is involved." "How do you know this?" Kurenai asked. "We'll get to that," Naruto promised. "Now this next part is where our tale gets interesting. I ask that you let me talk and save your questions." Once everyone nodded, he continued. "During the invasion, Sakura was looking for Sasuke and accidentally walked into a group of enemy ninja who were about to perform a collective summoning jutsu to summon a 3-headed snake to attack the Leaf. After barely defeating Gaara, the Jinchuriki of the One Tail, I was charged with the Kyuubi's power. Sensing that Sakura was in trouble, I quickly tracked her down. Sasuke felt my power and utilized a curse seal placed on him by Orochimaru, similar to the one on Anko, to catch up with us." A cynical smirk crossed Naruto's face. "Here's where things get complicated. Itachi was also in the village. He was using the chaos to find Sasuke and test his hatred. He entered the clearing and used Tsukuyomi, a time distortion jutsu, to torture Sasuke for 3 days in the space of a few seconds, hoping to increase Sasuke's hatred of him. While under the effects of this jutsu, Sasuke thrashed around in pain and accidentally knocked all 3 of us into the summon circle. That's when it all went to hell. The Kyuubi's chakra altered a few key points on the seal, causing it to reverse. Instead of summoning something into the circle, it banished anything within the circle. Sasuke's curse seal was designed to receive a soul, specifically Orochimaru's, but any soul would do really. The Kyuubi's chakra mixed with that as well, forming a sort of conduit between the summoning and curse seals, combining them. Instead of sending physical matter, it became a seal to banish souls. Naruto heaved a sigh. When the ninja, who were under threat of death to complete the summoning no matter what, activated the seal, we should have died. However, luck was on our side, because we had Sakura with us. You all may not know this, but Sakura has an inner personality in her head. This isn't a mental disorder, it's part of a rare ability she possesses. Sakura has a very large and very strong soul. If her soul comes in contact with another, she can act as a sort of hub for the other soul. As such, if she is ever exposed to another person's soul, she snatches it up and keeps it alive. Sakura suddenly spoke up. It's incredibly useful for saving a person's life with medical jutsu. If someone's body dies, their soul departs from it. With my ability, I'm able to temporarily house the soul while focusing on healing and restarting the body. Once the body is able to sustain itself, I can dump the soul back inside. Naruto gave Sakura a nod of acknowledgement and continued. Sasuke and I got caught by Sakura's soul when we were expelled from our bodies. With Sakura acting as the hub and a massive amount of the Kyuubi's chakra getting pulled along for the ride, we managed to keep each other alive. The final piece to an already complicated puzzle was the Tsukuyomi. At the time, Itachi was using it to make Sasuke repeat the same painful memories over and over again. Naruto held up his hand and began ticking off fingers. The altered summoning seal, the altered curse seal, Sakura's soul trap, the time-distorting Tsukuyomi, the Kyuubi's chakra, and 3 scared kids who didn't want to die. These factors all mixed together to create the situation we're currently in. When the seal activated, Sasuke, Sakura, and I found ourselves waking up on the day of the team placements. Asuma was horrified. Are you saying that? Yes, we traveled through time. To the single point where our 3 lives became intertwined with one another, the day we became teammates. If this is true, Kurenai began slowly. Then it still doesn't explain why you opened an inn of all things and how you defeated 2 S-class missing ninja. Naruto nodded. Very true, but the story isn't over yet. Not by a long shot. First, let's answer the question of how I beat Itachi and Kisame so easily. Naruto suddenly snapped his fingers. A body in a black cloak with red clouds appeared before them. This is the body of Itachi after I killed him. Though they could only see his face, the Leaf Ninja could tell immediately that this wasn't Itachi Uchiha. Transformation? Kurenai theorized. Avatarism. Naruto corrected. In a nutshell, members of Akatsuki can implant their minds and abilities onto another's body. This allows them to scout dangerous areas and fight without personal risk. The downside is that the avatars are only about 1/3 as strong as the actual controller. If this had been the real Itachi and Kisame, that fight wouldn't have gone nearly as well. Naruto snapped his fingers, causing the body to vanish. Now then, as for how we're so strong. We did indeed travel through time, but I never said we only did it once. The loops, as we call them, are permanently tied to our souls. As long as we stay alive, we continue through time normally. But if we die, for whatever reason, our souls are snapped back to the team selections, no matter what. The gravity of the situation began to sink in. Good God, Guy whispered. How long have you all been doing this? Naruto gave a humorless chuckle. We lost count of the decades a long time ago. Let's just say that Sasuke, Sakura and I have lived longer than any human being has a right to. That's why we opened this inn. Sometimes we need to take a step back and engage in some healthy stress relief. If you have all this time and information, then why aren't you in trying to save the village from the invasion? Asuma asked. Sasuke suddenly groaned. For God's sake, we've saved the village more times than there are leaves on a tree. We've each been declared heroes and have each even become Hokage. Hell, we've even been the cages of all the other villages as well. Maybe for once we just want to kick back and let the leaf save itself for once. Naruto cleared his throat. Let me clarify something. There is no end to these loops. No matter what we do, we will always wake up on the day of team selections eventually. We can unite the entire elemental nations under one flag and die at the age of 130 after over a century of peace, and we'll still wake up on team selections. We've analyzed every factor, tried every possibility, and done all the research we can on the event that got us here and how to get out. The simple answer is that there is no way out. There is no perfect loop or ultimate goal that will cause this to end. We're going to keep doing this forever. From now until the end of time. This is our life now. Kurenai suddenly had a horrific thought. If you want to keep running this in peacefully, then why tell us this? You must know that we will report all this to the Hokage. Naruto gave a sad smile. Because you won't remember any of this. We just needed to distract you long enough for the immobilization seals on the couch to take effect. The Leaf Ninja were horrified to discover that they couldn't move. This trick takes a while to use, and we needed to make sure you all couldn't evade. In our experience, telling the truth about our situation is a great way to distract people. Sorry about this, but it's nothing personal. Sasuke, do it. Sasuke closed his eyes for a moment before opening them, revealing the Mangekyo Sharingan spinning in his eyes. Sleep, he whispered. Scene break. Ino, wake up. Huh? Ino found herself lying on the ground in her sleeping bag with Shikamaru leaning over her. We're packing up camp and heading home. The Nara said. Okay. Ino quickly packed up her things and joined the others as they headed down the road. None of the Leaf Ninja felt the three pairs of eyes watching them from the shadows. For the sake of the nights you spent defending me from harm, please trust me. Sasuke quoted. How do you sleep at night? Naruto snorted. Yeah, because lying to a Jonin is the worst thing any of us have ever done. They were silent for a moment. What do we do now? Sakura finally asked. We wait. Naruto replied. Orochimaru is sure to come looking for Sasuke here eventually. He'll be expecting 3 ninja dropouts, not experienced combat veterans. It should be easy to get the drop on him. Once we take care of him, the invasion will fall apart without his leadership. Because of how easily we beat the avatars, Akatsuki will send the immortality twins after us next. Whether they're avatars or not, once we kill them, Akatsuki will be too nervous to attack us until the last moment. They'll gather up the other Biju, and once all 8 are captured, they'll come here. Then it's a simple matter of destroying the demonic statue of the outer path and removing the Biju from this world, and finishing off the remaining members. So we're just leaving the other Jinchuriki to die then? Sakura asked. Naruto sighed. It happens. Tell you what, we'll make it up to them next time by getting the Jinchuriki humanity law passed next go round. Sasuke groaned. Great, that means I have to impress Kakashi enough to convince him to take me on as his apprentice during the belt test. Then getting in good with the elders so they put you on the fast track to becoming Hokage. Sakura continued. Then getting inside the barrier put up by the Sound 4 so you can simultaneously save the old man, and prove your loyalty to the Leaf by resisting Orochimaru's offer for power. Naruto added. The 3rd Hokage will decide he needs to retire and will put me in the chair with him as my main advisor. Once he's confident enough you can handle it, he'll formally appoint you. Sakura said. Naruto picked up. Your first act will be to make Jinchuriki wards of the Hokage and ensure that they are granted all the rights of a citizen and have special loopholes in place to make it impossible for someone to mistreat a Jinchuriki. Sand, desperate to make up for the invasion, will quickly pick up the law as well. Sasuke sighed. Mist will be interested in an alliance so they put the law into place as well. Sakura interjected. Cloud, who actually treat their Jinchuriki fairly well, will pass the law out of principle, leaving Rock forced to pass it due to political pressure. Naruto smirked. With all 5 villages doing it, it will quickly become a national law, and Akatsuki won't be able to make a move without the entire elemental nations coming after their heads. Sasuke finished. Sakura laughed. We really got this down to an exact science, don't we? Naruto shrugged. It comes with experience. Now come on, we have other clients to attend to. Nodding in agreement, the 3 time travelers vanished into the trees. Naruto wiped the sweat from his brow as he sat back in the sand. He grabbed the canteen next to him and drank deeply from it. With a satisfied gasp, Naruto pulled the canteen away and wiped away a small bit of water from the corner of his mouth. He was currently in the village hidden in the sand, or more specifically, he was just outside of it in one of the various training grounds. In an effort to improve their elemental affinities, as well as add to their jutsu arsenal, Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke decided to split up and join the villages that suited their element. Since Leaf primarily specialized in fire jutsu, they had to look elsewhere for proper techniques. Naruto was in sand to learn wind techniques, Sasuke was in cloud to acquire new lighting jutsu, and Sakura was in stone to practice her earth styles. It was actually easier to get out of the Leaf Village and into the others than it should have been. Team 7 simply used shadow clones to fake their own deaths and they could leave the village without getting marked as missing ninja. From there, they used Naruto's special shapeshift to fool the other villages into thinking they were homeless vagabonds who learned how to use chakra from their dear departed mother or some other form of believable, but impossible to confirm story, and they were in. Okay, it wasn't that easy. Convincing an entire ninja village that they were dead when they actually weren't required a lot of careful planning and execution. If even a single detail was out of place, the ruse could be discovered. Getting into the other villages is even harder. While the shapeshift will stand up to any and all forms of scrutiny, they don't just let every random person who walks into their gates to become a ninja and learn their secrets. It takes months or even years worth of being questioned, observed, and tested before they even let you officially become a citizen, much less a ninja. That was all right though. If there was one thing Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke had learned from these loops, it was how to be patient. Naruto actually had the easiest end of the deal, since Sand was closest to Leaf and the two villages were allied. Sakura and Sasuke on the other hand, had to go deep into hostile territory. Even one wrong move could see them put in an interrogation cell or execution block. Still, Naruto was sure that his two friends would be fine, they were built tough, after all. The blonde Jinchuriki sighed as he dropped his canteen. He missed his friends. It had been nearly 3 years since he last saw them while participating in the Chunin exams held in the village hidden in the mist. It wasn't like they spent every second of every day together, but Naruto still grew lonely without his friends. Naruto smiled at that thought, his friends. Naruto wasn't willing to admit it, but despite how he acted before the loops began, Naruto doubted that Sakura and Sasuke considered him a friend. He most certainly considered them friends, but with Sakura's physical and verbal abuse, along with Sasuke's cold indifference, it was hard to feel like a part of the group. Because of the loops, Naruto found himself closer to Sasuke and Sakura than he ever could have imagined possible, and that was something he will always be thankful for. Despite himself, Naruto can't help but wonder, what would he have been like if he had entered the loops alone? Naruto doesn't doubt for a second that he would be completely different from the man he currently was, but in what ways? Without his friends' caring and support, how would the loops have taken their toll on his mind? If there's one thing Naruto knows about himself, it's that he will never give up on something he believes is right, no matter what. Naruto is mature enough now to understand that that is exactly what makes him dangerous. The problem with extremes is that it's disturbingly easy to flip from one to the other. The most righteous heroes become the most depraved villains. The greatest joy becomes the deepest sorrow. The purest love becomes the vicious hatred. Sasuke could personally attest to that. Itachi was the epitome of everything Sasuke wanted to be as a child. He was strong, calm, caring, and Sasuke loved him the most. When Itachi slaughtered his family, all the love Sasuke felt for Itachi quickly became hatred. So much so that it very nearly consumed him. Naruto's incredible drive to succeed may seem like a positive trait, but it could just as easily become his worst feature. Naruto knows he had a rough childhood, suffering from loneliness and emotional abuse from nearly everyone around him. It wouldn't have been hard for Naruto to grow to hate the village that had caused him so much pain. Even Sakura and Sasuke agree that, had Naruto vowed to destroy the village instead of becoming Hokage, then Leaf would have been burned to the ground. It was only thanks to the third Hokage that Naruto didn't turn into a sociopath. Sarutobi was very nearly the only person who truly cared for Naruto before the loops, besides the people working at Ichiraku Ramen and, of course, Iruka. Naturally, Naruto came to idolize the man and everything he stood for, wanting to grow up to be just like him, hence his obsession with becoming the Hokage. Sarutobi spent many hours telling stories to Naruto about the Leaf Village, and how much he loved it. He unwittingly painted the village in the best possible light, since that was truly how he viewed it, faults and all, and quite possibly saved it from a second coming of the Kyuubi. Thanks to the third Hokage's stories, Naruto was able to look past how the village treated him, and look at it as a whole. He was able to see the many happy citizens who lived content within the Leaf's walls, and Naruto vowed to one day be a part of that. By becoming the Hokage and gaining everyone's respect, Naruto's respect for the Hokage would never falter, or at least, that's what Naruto had thought. Not long after the loops began, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura tried to break into the Hokage's vault to get at his jutsu collection. Unfortunately, they were caught by an Anbu guard who held a particular hatred for Naruto after losing his daughter in the Kyuubi attack. The Anbu ignored Sasuke and Sakura, and instead dragged Naruto out in front of the entire village and loudly proclaimed that the blonde was trying to steal the village's secrets. To be fair to the Anbu, that was exactly what Naruto had been doing at the time. The crowd quickly turned ugly and began demanding that Naruto pay for his crimes against the village, something the Anbu was only too happy to provide. Before blood could be spilled, the third Hokage quickly arrived with his loyal Anbu and interrupted the proceeding. Despite arresting the overzealous, but justified Anbu, the village was still calling for blood. Not seeing another way that Naruto could escape unscathed, Sarutobi was forced revealed who Naruto's father was, and why he was chosen to hold the Nine Tails. Sarutobi hoped to mollify the crowd with the bombshell of Naruto's heritage so he could get Naruto away and get the real story out of him. Learning that their hero, the fourth Hokage, had chosen his own son to bear the burden of a Jinchuriki, the village quickly calmed down. Most were simply too shocked to remain angry, instead attempting to wrap their brain around this sudden reveal. All but one, that is. Naruto was devastated by this news. Since he first learned to talk, Naruto had asked the third Hokage about his parents. Every single time, without fail, Sarutobi would say he had no information about Naruto's parents. Not only did he refuse to tell Naruto the truth, but also he refused to even give Naruto a bit of comfort. All Naruto wanted to know was if his parents loved him, something Sarutobi could have told him, without revealing their identity. As Sarutobi stood before the crowd explaining the situation, Naruto did something he would never be able to forgive himself for. He attacked Sarutobi, charged with the Kyuubi's power, and very nearly killed him. It's important to remember one thing about the Kyuubi's influence on Naruto: it's influence, not control. Kyuubi can whisper dark thoughts in Naruto's head, or charge the blonde with demon chakra when he's enraged, but the demon can't actually control Naruto. That's why Naruto is so ashamed of his actions that day. No matter how much influence the Kyuubi might have had over him, it didn't change the fact that Naruto was still in control. At that moment, the third Hokage ceased to be the grandfather figure Naruto always regarded him as, and was instead a man who lied Naruto's entire life to keep him from any knowledge about his family. For all the bloodlust and thoughts of evil the Kyuubi filtered into Naruto, the fact remains that, in that instant, Naruto truly wanted to kill Sarutobi. The only reason Sarutobi didn't die that day was because of Sasuke and Sakura. Naruto, now covered in what he would later call the demon nine-tailed cloak, managed to deliver a nasty slash across the third Hokage's chest. Before he could make the kill, however, his teammates intervened. Sasuke and Sakura, who at that point were still nowhere near ready to take on Naruto while wearing the cloak, latched onto their teammate, desperately trying to hold him in place. To this day, Naruto still remembers the words his teammates said to him. "Please, Naruto, you have to stop," Sakura screamed. "I know you're angry, you have every right to be, but you're better than this." The corrosive chakra of the Kyuubi was beginning to eat away at her skin, but she refused to let go of Naruto. Sasuke nodded his agreement. "Naruto, I've hunted for revenge for such a long time. When Itachi killed my family, I let my desire for revenge consume me and I lost sight of everything else. That's what I've always admired about you, Naruto. You've never given in to revenge, even though you have far more reason to than I have. I've never admitted it, but I always thought you were so much stronger than me because of that. Please don't make the same mistake I did. Don't let revenge consume you. Nothing good can come from it." Reason slowly returned to Naruto as Sasuke's words sunk in. Sakura pressed on. No matter how bad things have gotten, you've always been there for us. You've made us laugh when we're depressed, motivated us when the situation seems hopeless, and you've never allowed us to give up. Please Naruto, we need you, and I can't stand seeing you like this." The red chakra faded as Naruto collapsed into his friend's arms. He raised his head to speak. "Guys, whatever Naruto was going to say was silenced by a poisoned sword plunging through his neck, killing him instantly. To attack the Hokage is high treason, and the perpetrator is to be executed immediately, no exceptions." Sasuke and Sakura were quickly executed as well when they tried to retaliate. Naruto had awoken on the day of team selections to find Sasuke and Sakura at his door. The three immediately embraced and simply took comfort in each other's presence. They missed team selections, but they didn't care. No words were spoken and none were needed. It was just enough to know that they were there for each other, and that they always would be. For Naruto, he knew that he wouldn't have been able to get through the loops without Sasuke and Sakura helping him. He doesn't know what he would have been like if he was alone, and hopefully he'll never have to. His iron will could have led to him vowing to destroy the Leaf Village or even the elemental nations as a whole. Instead, Naruto vowed to defend his homeland, from Orochimaru, from Akatsuki, from Madara, and especially from the Jubi, though that was still many years away. For now, Naruto had a job to do. Practicing his wind jutsu, so he was prepared to put his name forward for promotion to Jonin. After all, it wouldn't do to get left behind by Sakura and Sasuke, would it? Scene break. Sakura breathed very slowly as she concentrated. She was deep underground, among the many tunnels that ran beneath the village hidden in stone. The tunnels ran deep and far, allowing the stone ninja to easily traverse through the large mountain ranges that surrounded the village. Assuming that they could memorize which paths weren't dead ends or filled with traps, that is. The entire setup was a maze and Sakura still only knew the basic safe routes to take, though that would change once she became a Jonin. Sakura was situated in a small alcove that was just barely big enough for her to sit in. She was just finishing a training exercise. Directly in front of her was a long tunnel. Another stone ninja was in a similar alcove at the other end. A large stone boulder was situated between the two of them. The two ninja would take turns to control the boulder and make it roll towards one another. The purpose of the exercise is to practice with power and control at once. It takes power to roll the stone, but without the right control, you could push it too far and hurt your training partner. Stopping the boulder took control, but without the right amount of power, it would crush you. This was quite possibly Sakura's favorite training exercise. It focused on chakra control, her specialty, while simultaneously working to increase her chakra reserves and her earth affinity. She actually preferred practicing with less experienced ninja, so she had to work extra hard to stop and move the boulder. After stopping the boulder in the center of the tunnel, Sakura wiped the sweat from her forehead and pulled herself up through a hole out of the alcove and into the main tunnels. She gave a nod of thanks to her partner before heading off to her apartment to shower and change. As she exited the tunnels, the full glory of the village hidden in the stone stood before her. Sakura had to admit, she loved this place. The large stone towers seemed cold and menacing at first, and the dreary climate sure didn't help. Yet, there was some real character to the various buildings. Maybe because she was aligned with the earth, but Sakura could see the effort and craftsmanship that had to have gone into each structure. Plus, there was just something about being surrounded by mountains and away from the world that made Sakura feel at home. She would have to talk to Naruto and Sasuke about moving here for a loop or two. Thinking of her friends brought down Sakura's good mood somewhat. She missed her boys. Sakura may have made a friend or two since entering Stone, but it didn't make up for the absence of the only two people whom Sakura felt truly comfortable with. She hoped that the two were keeping out of trouble. Sasuke had an uncanny ability to piss people off without saying much, and trouble seemed to track down Naruto like a devoted puppy. Still, if nothing else, Sakura could at least take comfort in the fact they were both still alive. She knew this for a fact, because if either Naruto or Sasuke died, she would die as well. While looking through any and all jutsu that had to do with time travel or souls, Sakura had discovered a technique that could bind people's lives to one another. It literally makes it so that one person can't live without the other. If one dies, the other quickly follows. It was originally used for weddings in ancient culture, to literally bind two lives together so that the spouses wouldn't have to face life without one another. It fell out of practice after the First Great Ninja War, when it nearly doubled the amounts of deaths due to the binding. Sakura had originally intended to throw the scroll away, but when she told Sasuke what it did, he had insisted that the three of them bind themselves to one another. Sakura and Naruto had been hesitant, but Sasuke remained firm. He said that they were all in this mess together, and they shouldn't ever be alone in the loops. Sakura and Naruto eventually gave in due to what happened to Sasuke. It had been some time ago. Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura had been in some hotel in a random village after escorting a traveling trading caravan. They were intending to leave the next morning, so decided to turn in early. It all went to hell when someone knocked on the door. Sakura really doesn't remember what happened next, it all went too fast. All she remembers was Naruto lying in a bloody heap on the floor, Sasuke pinned to the wall by knives, and a pair of cold, red, Sharingan eyes staring into her soul as her throat was slit. When Sakura and Naruto woke up at the start of a new loop, it took them all day to track down Sasuke. When they found him in an underground room in the Uchiha compound, they both knew something was wrong. Sasuke latched onto them and desperately cried, refusing to let either of them go. To this day, Sakura and Naruto haven't learned how long Sasuke lived on his own after watching his brother kill them. They don't know what he did or what happened to him. All Sakura knows is that Sasuke was so broken when they found him. It took a long time to put Sasuke back together, and even now the scars still ran deep. While Sakura believes that talking about it would help, a part of her doesn't want to know. She doesn't want to know what Sasuke could have gone through to cause him so much pain. All she can do is try to be there for him and hope for the best. Respect, honesty, patience, faith, and love. Sakura prayed that if she and Naruto provided Sasuke with enough of all five, then everything would work out in the end. Even though it was clearly much longer for Sasuke, from her perspective it was only a few hours, so the sudden shift had jarring to say the least. Seeing Sasuke so different from what she had grown accustomed and the fear that the same thing could happen again, made Sakura agree to bind their souls together. The bond could be inconvenient on occasion, but it gave Sasuke a measure of comfort, so Naruto and Sakura didn't grudge it. Truth be told, Sakura is actually glad that she'll never have to experience what Sasuke did. Thinking about the soul bond always made Sakura wonder, what would she have been like if she had entered the loops alone? Sakura has a pretty good idea of how she would have acted. She would have cried and screamed and pushed all her problems onto someone else. She would have taken out her frustration on Naruto and waited for Sasuke to save her. When it became apparent that he wouldn't be able to do anything, Sakura imagines she would have gone insane. Sakura is certain that if she were ever somehow meet her pre-looping self, the two of them wouldn't have gotten along. The most painful lesson these loops had taught Sakura was that there's nothing wrong with relying on your friends, but sometimes you have to stand up and be strong on your own. Sakura remembers the day she made the conscious decision to stop letting Naruto and Sasuke carry her. It was still very early in the loops, when they didn't know what they were doing and were desperate for a solution. Naruto and Sasuke had been arguing while Sakura just sat there, unwilling to interject. "No, Sasuke," Naruto had growled. "You've had some bad ideas before, but this takes the cake. Think about it, Naruto. Use that space between your ears. We don't have any idea what we're doing or how we got into this mess. He is sure to have an entire catacomb worth of jutsu and information that we could use to our advantage." Sasuke argued, "The guy is batshit insane. Instead of heading for the hills, you want to throw yourself into his clutches, and you say I'm the stupid one?" Naruto demanded. "Orochimaru is the snake Sannin." Sasuke retorted, trying to keep his calm. "He is considered one of the greatest ninja to ever live and he wants to train me. This is a golden opportunity, can't you see that? So what? You're just going to betray the leaf and go running off with its greatest traitor?" Naruto was starting to scream. "It will be back to normal after the reset." Sasuke's voice was rising as well. "I can learn as much as possible, then be back in the leaf without any consequence." Naruto wasn't having it. "He betrayed our village and led an invasion against it." Sasuke opened his mouth to retort, but Naruto cut him off. "He killed my grandfather." Sasuke bit his lip and looked away. The death of the third Hokage had been a harsh blow to everyone in the village, but it was clear that Naruto took it the worst. Even with the benefit of having him back after the resets, That didn't make attending his funeral over and over again any less painful. If there's one thing Sasuke could understand, it's having your loved ones torn away from you. We can use this against him, Naruto. Sasuke said quietly, his previous anger forgotten. I can learn his secrets and techniques. I'll learn how to take him down and we'll save the third Hokage once these loops end. Sakura had been sidelined through all this. While she didn't want Sasuke to leave her, she was still too infatuated with him to go against his decision. She still remembers thinking, back when they thought the loops could end, that Sasuke would eventually find a way out for all of them. How naive. Naruto wasn't done yet. What about that possession jutsu of his? You understand that he only wants you so he can take control of your body? Of course I understand that, but even if he succeeds, the loops will. You don't know that. Naruto cut him off. We don't know how much these loops can reverse. For all we know, Orochimaru's soul taking over your body might erase you completely and put Orochimaru in these loops. What if we wake up on team selections and it's not you inside your own head, but that snake freak? Sakura and Sasuke both shuddered. The mere thought of what Orochimaru could do with these loops was terrifying. Despite this, Sasuke wouldn't back down. It's a risk we have to take. I need this, Naruto. Naruto's eyes had actually flashed red for a moment. You need what? Power? So you can go kill your brother? Sasuke nodded weakly. Have you ever stopped to realize how psychotic you sound when you talk about killing your own flesh and blood? He killed my family, Sasuke shouted. Naruto was unimpressed. And now you're off to do the same damn thing. We can turn it into an Uchiha family tradition. Hey, here's an idea. When you have some kids, you can give them little dolls that look like you to set on fire so they're ready to keep the tradition alive by murdering you in your sleep. Make sure you hit them with that twisted eye torture technique your brother loves every once in a while. You know, to keep them on their toes. Sasuke and Sakura had been too shocked to respond. Naruto wasn't even close to finished. You say you're doing your duty as an Avenger. Naruto spat out the word like it tasted bad. But according to you, your brother told you hunt him down and kill him. So to stick it to your brother, you're going to do exactly what he told you to do. You say that's what your clan would want, but it sounds a hell of a lot like you're doing exactly what your brother wants. Sasuke recoiled as if slapped and sat down, staring at the floor. Naruto gave a frustrated sigh. Going to Orochimaru is out of the question. I already lost someone I care about because of that maniac, I'm not losing another. With that, Naruto stormed out of the room. Sakura stood slowly, not really sure what to say or do. Unable to stand seeing Sasuke so downtrodden, but not knowing what she could possibly say, Sakura did the best she could. I'm really sorry, Sasuke. Was all she managed before hurrying out of the room. She left so quickly that she almost didn't hear Sasuke's response. I'm sorry too, Sakura. He whispered. The next day, Sakura and Naruto learned from Tsunade that Sasuke had left the village in the middle of the night. Sakura had never seen Naruto so angry before, and it was the first time she felt legitimately afraid of him. His eyes had turned red, his nails and teeth sharpened to points, his whiskers darkened, and he actually started growling. These changes were fortunately brief as Naruto quickly got a hold of himself. I'm going after him, Naruto declared. No, Naruto. We have reason to believe that Sasuke is traveling with Orochimaru's elite Sound 4. We don't have any ninja strong enough to face them on standby. We can't afford to go after him, Tsunade said. Apparently I didn't make myself clear, Lady Hokage. Naruto growled. I'm going after Sasuke. If you want to send back up with me, that's fine, but I'm going after Sasuke. The blonde turned on his heel and strode out the door. Naruto. If you leave then I'm going to have you suspended from your ninja duties. Tsunade threatened. It was hard to say who had been more shocked, Tsunade or Sakura, when Naruto's headband was carelessly tossed back into the Hokage's office. For a moment, the two of them had just stared down at the headband, unable to believe how far Naruto was willing to go. Naruto, wait, Tsunade shouted, but Naruto had already run off. Damn that brat. Shizune, get a team together. Naruto is going to get himself killed if he goes off alone. Once again Sakura felt herself being sidelined. Naruto had never even entertained the idea of her coming along. Sasuke was her teammate too, damn it. Yet, she knew that she would only be a hindrance along the mission. Sakura hated this feeling, the feeling of being weak and helpless. What happened to the strength and resolve she felt when she sliced off her own hair and went toe-to-toe with the sound ninja? Was her vow that day really just a meaningless bunch of words? The time that followed as she waited for the Naruto to return were harrowing to Sakura. She very nearly ended up working a groove into the floor from her constant pacing in the Hokage Tower. When news of the recovery team's success reached Sakura, she tore off like mad towards the hospital to see her teammates. Sakura had found Sasuke's room first. She opened the door, intending to play the understanding friend to a no-doubt frustrated Sasuke, only to freeze when she laid eyes on him. Sasuke was covered in bandages, his right arm looked like it had been flash-fried and he was being kept knocked out to better heal his injuries. Staring at her crush, Sakura had felt anger build up inside of her. Naruto did this, she thought as she left the room. He was jealous of Sasuke trying to actually get stronger to find a way out of these loops. That's why he didn't want Sasuke to leave. So he hunted him down and beat him within an inch of his life. Sakura's mind quickly spiraled into a hate fest as she mentally cursed Naruto for daring to hurt Sasuke. That bastard, I'll show him. The enraged Kunoichi stormed towards Naruto's room, intending to yell and scream at Naruto for hurting her crush. Once she found his room, Sakura slammed open the door, and opened her mouth to scream, only for her anger to die in her throat. If Sasuke looked like he'd been beaten within an inch of his life, Naruto looked like he'd been sent flying straight over the edge only to barely get knocked back into life. Sakura had never seen so many injuries on a single person before. There were bandages everywhere, most of which were red with blood. Both his arms were in slings. His legs looked like dogs had spent the better part of an hour chewing on them, and there were entire seal arrays over Naruto's chest that looked like a hole had been blown through it. Even worse was the fact that despite his ludicrous amount of injuries, he was still awake. Naruto gave Sakura a weak smile. Hey, Sakura, I brought Sasuke back. Just the act of talking looked like it was causing him incredible pain. Sakura fell to her knees beside Naruto's bed, desperately wanting to hug the poor boy, but afraid she might injure him further. Oh, Naruto, what happened to you? Naruto's expression darkened. Sasuke happened. Sakura was horrified. Sasuke? He did this to you? Naruto nodded. Those sound freaks did something to him. They put him in a barrel to, as they put it, finish the process. Whatever it was, it powered up Sasuke's curse seal. It's starting to do more than just influence his mind, now it's able to actually physically alter him. Naruto paused for a moment to look out the window. He seriously tried to kill me, Sakura. Sakura's mind raced as she tried to process this information. Sasuke tried to kill Naruto. Naruto nearly killed Sasuke. It was self-defense. Why would Sasuke do such a thing? The curse seal has tainted his mind, it's not his fault. This just proves Naruto was right. If Sasuke can't handle the curse seal, he'll never be able to resist Orochimaru. Sasuke was just doing what he thought was right. So was Naruto. Naruto would never have resorted to trying to kill his friends. Naruto, Sakura said slowly. Thank you. She leaned up and gave him a quick kiss on the cheek. Despite himself, Naruto blushed slightly. What was that for, Sakura? Just for being you. Excuse me, Naruto, but I need some room to think. Sakura got to her feet and left the room. She wandered the halls, her emotions a whirlwind inside her. Sakura so wanted to believe that Naruto was lying, but he was one of the most honest individuals she knew. Not to mention the fact that it was clear who had taken the worst beating during the fight. Sakura didn't know what to do. If the curse seal could truly influence Sasuke so severely, then they needed to figure out a way to remove it or, ideally, stop Sasuke from getting it at all. Until that was possible, however, Sasuke would have to be contained. It seemed Naruto could stop Sasuke in a fight, but only barely. What if next time, Sasuke comes out ahead? Would he really kill Naruto? Naruto needs help in stopping Sasuke from losing control, and Sakura realized she was the only one who could help him. But I don't want to have to hurt Sasuke. Sakura moaned to herself. Screw you. A separate voice suddenly shouted in her head. This isn't about you or what you want. This is about Naruto and Sasuke. Inner Sakura raged. Naruto needs you to be strong so he doesn't have constantly worry about you, like when he fought Gaara. Sakura winced at the reminder of being pinned to a tree and nearly crushed to death. Inner Sakura wasn't done yet. Sasuke needs you to be strong, so the moron doesn't go off the deep end and kill the people he's supposed to care about. You need to be strong because the two of them need you to be. But I don't know what to do to be strong. Sakura wailed. Inner Sakura's voice softened. You already made the first step in the forest of death, remember? You vowed to become strong and not let Naruto and Sasuke worry about you. Now you just need to make good on that promise. Forget about attracting boys, looking good, and just trying to float by in life. Those days of childhood joy went out the window when you put on that headband. It's time to start training for real. Sakura nodded her head as she felt the familiar resolve that had filled her during the second exam. She was a ninja of the leaf. It was time to start acting like one. That's my girl. Inner Sakura cheered, before her voice turned cruel. But first, let's go and show Sasuke what happens when you hurt people we care about. Her mind made up Sakura headed back towards Sasuke's room. Once she was sure no one was around, Sakura cut off the flow of the drug that was keeping Sasuke asleep. Sakura waited as he slowly came to his senses. Sakura? He asked groggily. Sasuke, are you awake? She snapped her fingers in front of his face a few times to gain his focus. Yeah, I'm awake. Where are we? What happened to? Wham! Once she was certain Sasuke was alert, Sakura nailed him across the face with a right hook. Ow! What the hell was that for? Sakura grabbed Sasuke's shirt and pulled him up to her eye level. Her voice came out in a low growl. That was for trying to kill Naruto. I hope you understand that you've only managed to prove that Naruto was right all along. You can't handle the curse seal, and if you think I'm just going to sit back and let you hurt not only Naruto, but also yourself, then you've got another thing coming. Try to run away again and I'll drag your sorry ass back to the village myself. Satisfied she'd made her point, Sakura dropped Sasuke back on the bed and strode out of the room. Right before she cleared the door, Sasuke spoke. What happened to you, Sakura? Without turning, Sakura responded. I've had to grow up and realize that my friends are too stupid to remember that they're on the same side without me there to straighten them out. Leaving Sasuke to his thoughts, Sakura went to spend the rest of the visiting hours with Naruto. Sakura pulled herself out of her reminiscing as she reached her apartment in stone. It was a pretty small thing, but she didn't need much space and had decorated it enough to feel at home in it. As she prepared for a much-deserved shower, Sakura hoped that Naruto and Sasuke could survive long enough without her to make Chunin and learn some real techniques. Because she intended to bury them both with her new jutsu once she got back to Leaf. Scene break. Lighting crashed, thunder boomed, and rain pelted down on Sasuke's body. He stood at the top of the tallest mountain in Lightning Country, even higher than the hidden village of Cloud. A massive storm raged around him as he attempted to strike out it and reflect the various lightning strikes with his own. It was dangerous, it was borderline suicidal, but it was secluded, it was demanding, and it made him stronger, which was what Sasuke really wanted. Storms always made Sasuke feel better. Maybe it was the electricity in the air that reacted to his lightning affinity. Maybe it was the moroseness of the gray clouds that so often matched his mood. Maybe it was simply that the heavy rain blocked out all other sounds, sights, and smells, and allowed Sasuke to feel free from the insanity his life had become. Sasuke couldn't deny it, he missed Naruto and Sakura. He can't help but wonder when exactly they became friends in his mind. When he stopped referring to Naruto as dead last or idiot. When he stopped considering Sakura an unwanted load to be carried and instead considered her his friend. Whatever the reason for why they became so important to him, Sasuke knows he'll do anything and everything to protect them. Unlike Naruto and Sakura, Sasuke doesn't need to imagine what he would have been like if he entered the loops alone. He experienced firsthand exactly what it would be like. Sasuke still remembers the day with alarming clarity. They had been lounging in a hotel when someone had knocked on the door. Naruto had moved to answer the door, only for a blade to slice through the wood and cut the blonde in half. Itachi strode into the room, quickly plunging the blade into Naruto's heart, kidneys, lungs, and finally pinning the blade through his brain. Not even Naruto could survive that. Sasuke had shot to his feet, but Itachi kicked him into a wall, and then used 5 extra long kunai to stake Sasuke into place. Sasuke struggled and fought against his bindings, even very nearly ripping his arm off. The Uchiha screamed his throat raw, as he demanded Itachi leave his teammates alone. Those demands quickly turned into desperate cries for someone to help as Itachi held Sakura's neck up where Sasuke could clearly see. Sasuke will never forget watching the knife plunge into Sakura's neck, or the way her eyes lost their focus as the life slowly drained out of them. Once he was sure she was dead, Itachi unceremoniously dropped Sakura to the ground and left. He hadn't said a single word, and had been in and out in nearly 60 seconds. When Sasuke finally managed to pry himself off the wall, his first thought was just to slit his wrists and be done with it. Wake up on team selections and just try to pretend it had never happened. But he didn't. He couldn't. Naruto and Sakura were Sasuke's anchors. They kept him on the right side of sane so his own hatred wouldn't get the better of him. Without either of them to talk him out of pursuing Itachi, all the old thoughts of bloodlust and revenge came roaring back. Even worse was the fact that Sasuke had gotten his curse mark that loop. He had hoped to practice controlling it on a day-to-day basis with Naruto and Sakura there to watch over him. Now it could whisper its dark promises of power to Sasuke unimpeded. Sasuke sat there, the blood of his best friend still warm on the walls, knife poised over his own wrist to end his life, and he gave in to revenge. Sasuke lowered the knife and swore that he wouldn't rest until Itachi died by his hand. To do that, he needed to get stronger fast, and Sasuke knew just the missing ninja to make that happen. Despite all the times he may have considered or argued for it, Sasuke had never actually joined Orochimaru, but that would soon change. Still, Sasuke wasn't heartless, and had no intention of leaving his friends' corpses to rot in some god-forsaken hotel. He reported their deaths to the village and helped the dispatch teams transport them home. Sasuke's original intention had been to attend both their funerals and take some time to properly mourn before leaving for Sound. That plan went out the window when the bastards started celebrating. Naruto hadn't even been fully buried when a huge crowd showed up to dance on the blonde's grave. Sasuke snapped. Seeing those villagers disrespecting his best friend pushed him over the edge of sanity. Sasuke killed at least 23 men and women before the ninja arrived to arrest him. They were expecting a genin with only a few months of experience, so Sasuke was easily able to surprise and overpower them with the skill honed during the loops. After that, Sasuke ran. He ran and ran, afraid that if he stopped for even a moment, then Leaf would capture him and he would never avenge Naruto and Sakura. No one caught up with Sasuke. He was so focused on escaping that he wasn't sure if they were unable to keep up, or if they simply hadn't the time to prepare a retrieval team before he crossed the border into Rice Country. Only after making it into Rice Country did Sasuke realize that he had no idea where Orochimaru actually set up shop. This didn't prove to be a problem as Orochimaru quickly found him. Word travels faster than ninja, and Sasuke going on a rampage at his teammate's funeral was already well known. When the rogue Sannin appeared before Sasuke, he opened his mouth to speak, but Sasuke raised his hand. "Save it. I don't care how, I don't care what it takes, and I don't care what you do to me. Just make me strong enough so I can kill Itachi, and you can have my worthless body after that." Orochimaru's grin went from ear to ear. So it began. Orochimaru trained Sasuke into the ground. In a few short years, Orochimaru had filled Sasuke with more than just jutsu and techniques. He had systematically removed whatever traces of humanity remained in Sasuke and nurtured Sasuke's hatred until it consumed him, leaving room for nothing else. This ultimately came back to bite the Sannin, as Sasuke waited until Orochimaru's current body was sick and rundown before betraying him. With Orochimaru's body literally fighting against him, it was easy for Sasuke to kill the snake. Sasuke gathered a team from Orochimaru's minions and set out to hunt down his brother. It had only taken a month before they ran into Itachi, though it was quite a bit longer before Sasuke finally met one who wasn't an avatar or illusion. However, it was only a matter of time before Sasuke finally tracked down his brother. Leaving Suigetsu, Karen, and Jugo to deal with Kisame, Sasuke went onward to confront Itachi. What followed was by far the hardest battle of Sasuke's life. Illusions, S-class jutsu, philosophy, hand-to-hand combat, and psychological warfare all bundled together into one explosive battle. In the end, Sasuke's hard work paid off. Itachi laid beneath Sasuke, his eyes ripped out and his arms and legs pinned to the ground. Sasuke held a knife to Itachi's throat, The same knife he used to kill Sakura that Sasuke very nearly killed himself with. Sasuke carried it with him all this time, to exact his vengeance with. This is for Naruto and Sakura. Sasuke raised the knife high above his head, and brought it down into Itachi's skull with all the force his worn-out body could muster. As Itachi finally died, a voice whispered into Sasuke's ear. "Well done, Sasuke." Then everything went black. When Sasuke awoke, he was in an underground room, in the presence of a man with a strange orange spiral mask. That was the day Sasuke learned about the existence of Madara Uchiha and the truth of the Uchiha massacre. Sasuke had felt as if his entire existence was crashing down around him. All this time he had been trying to kill his brother, when Itachi was doing everything in his power to protect him. He just wanted Sasuke to be safe and away from Madara's influence. Instead, Sasuke had blundered right into it. Itachi allowed the entire world to think he was an insane, heartless murderer. He took the sins of all the Uchiha on his back so Sasuke wouldn't have to bear the load. "Itachi, I'm so sorry." Still, something wasn't adding up. If Itachi truly didn't want Sasuke to follow the path of hatred and instead wanted him to redeem the Uchiha clan, then why did he kill Naruto and Sakura? It was completely contradictory to his motivations. Unless it wasn't Itachi who actually committed the murder. That couldn't be right though. To pull off such a thing would have taken an incredible illusion, and Sasuke's Sharingan can see through illusions, unless another Sharingan cast them. So it had to be Itachi then. The only other Sharingan users were himself, Kakashi, and Madara. A cold realization filled Sasuke. "It was you," Sasuke had whispered, interrupting Madara's speech about the evils of the leaf. "It was you that day that killed my friends." I didn't question the possibility of someone using an illusion to look like Itachi, because it would take a Sharingan to fool a Sharingan. Up till now, I thought there were only 3 Sharingan users left, but there is actually a 4th, you. Madara was quiet for a moment, his expression hidden behind his mask. "Huh, I didn't actually think you'd be smart enough to figure that out." The ground where Madara was standing on a moment before exploded as Sasuke tried to hit Madara with his Thousand Birds technique. "Humph, not bad," Madara said from across the room. "But you're way too weak to actually land a blow on me. It's a shame. I had hoped to wind you up and point you towards the Leaf Village to distract the major villages long enough for me to finish my plan. It's bad enough that the Kyuubi is taking so long to reform itself, stupid 4th Hokage, but now you've proven to be a hindrance as well. Ah well, no plan survives contact with the enemy and all that. I guess I'll just have to kill you." Sasuke, still severely weakened from his battle with Itachi, collapsed to the ground. The Thousand Birds technique had taken a lot of chakra he simply didn't have at the moment, and his body was shutting down. Madara, almost casually, strolled over and bent down over Sasuke. He got so close that Sasuke could see the Sharingan eye behind the eye-hole in his mask. "So long, Sasuke. Give my regards to your brother for me." Sasuke suddenly felt a terrible pain in his eyes as blood seeped from his sockets. Black flames consumed Madara, blowing him back into the darkness and out of Sasuke's sight. "Damn him," Madara cursed. "Itachi gave you his eyes, didn't he? Clever bastard must have set them to activate whenever you saw my Sharingan. You got lucky this time, Sasuke. I have to go get these healed. Itachi's Amaterasu technique isn't something to take lightly. Next time, I'll most certainly kill you." Before falling into darkness, all Sasuke could hear were the slow steps of Madara retreating. Sasuke slowly awoke to the sound of someone calling his name. "Sasuke, Sasuke, Sasuke," Karen wailed. I'm awake, Karen." Sasuke suddenly found his vision obscured by red hair as Karen latched onto his neck. "Sasuke, thank God," she cried. "Karen, what happened? Where are Suigetsu and Jugo?" Sasuke struggled to get out over Karen's sobs. Karen sniffed and pulled away, wiping away tears. They're dead, Sasuke. Kisame is a complete monster. Suigetsu challenged him to a sword fight and couldn't even score a single blow on him before Kisame cut off Suigetsu's head. Jugo lost it and entered his berserker form, but even that wasn't enough. Kisame somehow combined with his sword, turning himself into a humanoid shark abomination. He ripped Jugo to pieces. "What happened then?" Sasuke asked. Karen took a shuddering breath. "He came towards me, His unnatural chakra was making me sick to my stomach. He said he needed something to eat after his battle and decided to take a snack before leaving me. With a start, Sasuke realized Karen's left arm was gone. Karen continued on, her gaze locked on the floor. The pain was so bad I could barely think straight. I don't know how I managed to heal myself, but I did. I finally gathered the energy to go looking for you and found you in this underground room. I thought I had lost you too, Sasuke. Tears overflowed from Karen's eyes and she began to cry. Sasuke felt a pain in his chest as he stared at the sobbing medic ninja. I'm sorry, Karen. I should never have brought you here and gotten you involved in my battle with Itachi. Karen suddenly raised her head. Don't say that, Sasuke. You needed me. You would be dead if it wasn't for me. Karen wiped at her eyes with her remaining hand and forced a smile. Besides, you achieved your goal, didn't you? Sasuke's expression darkened. No, I was misinformed about a lot of things. My real target, Madara Uchiha, is still alive and I need to kill him. Karen, you've already suffered from being with me, so I can't ask you to join me in. Sasuke was silenced by Karen gently placing her fingers on his lips. You don't have to ask me, because I'm going to follow you anyway. No matter what, I'm not leaving you. Sasuke wasn't sure what to say. Karen, please don't leave me, Sasuke. Karen whispered, you are all I have left. Sasuke closed his eyes as he contemplated his next action. What would Naruto do? Sasuke asked himself. Forcing a smile on his face, Sasuke opened his eyes. Okay Karen, if you still want to put up with me, then you are welcome to stay, but understand that if you ever want to back out, just say so. I won't think any less of you for it. Karen squealed and wrapped her arm around Sasuke. Never, she promised. It took Sasuke and Karen 10 years to finally track down Madara. After years and years of systematically taking down Akatsuki member after Akatsuki member, killing anyone who got in his way, and having the entire ninja world clamor for his head, Sasuke finally had Madara. The fight lasted 3 minutes. Sasuke had severely underestimated how strong an immortal man would be. Madara could tear down and cast illusions without so much as moving, could use more jutsu than Sasuke knew existed, had martial art skills honed to perfection from a century of life, and was a master of the Sharingan. Sasuke never stood a chance. Sasuke was pinned to a wall by kunai. His body was broken and his chakra was gone. He was completely beaten. Madara stood in front of Sasuke with a struggling Karen in his grip. The ancient Uchiha held a knife up to Karen's throat as Sasuke watched in horror. Well now, doesn't this seem familiar? Madara taunted. Karen was trembling in fear. Sasuke, whatever Karen had been about to say was cut off by Madara plunging the knife into her throat. Madara laughed as he dropped the girl's limp form to the ground and watched her bleed out. Sasuke was too tired to even feel rage anymore. All he could feel was sorrow, regret, and guilt for letting his own desire for revenge bring death to everyone he cared about. Madara wiped the Karen's blood off his knife before making his way over towards Sasuke. The mask-wearing ninja grabbed Sasuke's face and raised the younger Uchiha's head. Poor little Sasuke. You keep letting your loved ones get killed. I imagine you must be in such pain right now. I bet you would love nothing more than to die and make the pain go away. Madara suddenly grabbed Sasuke and ripped him off the wall, causing Sasuke to cry out in pain as the kunai were pulled out of his wounds. That's just too damn bad, Sasuke. You may be beaten and broken, but you don't get to die yet. Your punishment must be more severe. Madara dragged Sasuke to the top of the tallest tower in the Hidden in the Rain and impaled Sasuke through the stomach on a large spike. Madara made a point to visit Sasuke every day to make sure Sasuke's chakra was bound, and heal him just enough so Sasuke would stay conscious. It took Sasuke 7 days to die. When Sasuke woke up in his bed on the day of team selections, he had simply assumed that it was another illusion cast by Madara to torture him. Madara had made a game of seeing how harshly he could mentally scar Sasuke with his illusions. When Sasuke's eyes didn't turn into vats of acid and his tongue didn't grow teeth and begin eating itself, Sasuke assumed Madara was trying a subtler tactic. Instead of sitting in bed, Sasuke decided to enter the underground shrine that held a scroll that could only be read by the Sharingan. Sasuke just stared at the scroll, waiting for whatever torment awaited him. When Naruto and Sakura found him, Sasuke was horrified. He feared that Madara was going to kill his friends in front of him again, or even have them kill him. It wasn't until they both tried to shake him out of his stupor and asked what happened after Madara had killed them, did Sasuke realize what had happened. Sasuke spent much of his childhood ignoring everything. He had one goal, revenge, and everything that couldn't achieve that goal was meaningless to him. This gave him an odd filter in his brain that would remove or impede any information that didn't help get revenge. This filter worked against him, as it pushed the time loop out of his mind in place of revenge. Everything came rushing back to Sasuke in an instant and he threw himself at his friends. Sasuke hated crying. He viewed it as a sign of weakness and did everything in his power to avoid the act. That went out the window as he sobbed into his friends' arms, so relieved to have them back in his life that he didn't give a damn about anything else. Even with his friends back, Sasuke had spent over 13 years on his own with revenge as his only goal. Those scars still ran deep and Sasuke doubted he would ever fully recover from that incident. Still, Sasuke had his friends back, and all the time in the world to heal. If nothing else, Sasuke at least knew that he would never have to relive the horrible experience of living without his friends. The soul bond that Sakura had found was a gift from above as far as Sasuke was concerned. Not only was Sasuke protected by it, but it also meant that Naruto and Sakura would never have to experience what he did. If there was one thing Sasuke took away from those dark days, it was understanding just how much Naruto and Sakura meant to him, and how far he'll go through to protect them. The storm had passed during Sasuke's reflection on the past, and the skies were beginning to clear. Deciding he had enough training for the day, Sasuke headed back for the village. Instead of just body flickering down, Sasuke decided to take his time and walk back down the mountain path. He smiled as the bright sun began to dip into the horizon, painting the sky pink. The combination of colors made Sasuke think of his friends with a warm smile. Maybe clear skies were better than storms after all. Sasuke stared out over the village from his vantage point on his roof. Night had fallen and the village was slowly falling asleep as the civilian activity came to an end. The village was beginning to regain its strength now that Tsunade was in the Hokage chair, but it would take time to heal. Sasuke simply enjoyed the cool breeze as he waited. The soft sounds of muffled footsteps alerted him to the fact he wasn't alone. Sasuke probably would have missed it if he weren't specifically looking for it. Climbing to his feet, Sasuke turned to regard the four individuals in front of him. So I had to ask, is Leaf's security really that bad, or are you all just that good? Sasuke asked the Sound 4. A man with dull gray hair grinned. It's a little of both, really. We're the elite of the Sound Village, but Leaf has plenty of holes to exploit if you know where to find them. Sakin grew serious. We're here on behalf of Lord Orochimaru. He requests that you come with us and join the Sound Village. He promises to give you all the power you could ever need. Sasuke nodded. I figured as much. I agree to join you. Sasuke almost laughed as the Sound 4, who were clearly expecting a fight, nearly tripped over themselves. Sakin regained his composure first. You're agreeing to come with us and betray the Leaf Village? Without a fuss? Sasuke smirked. Not exactly. I have certain conditions to going with you. Sasuke was impressed. He hadn't heard swearing like that since the time Sakura broke 3 of her toes and pulled a hamstring while practicing her earth techniques. Sakin held out his hand and silenced the irate female. He turned his gaze back to Sasuke. I'm listening. Scene break. I don't like this, Sakin. Do you really think this is a good idea? Tayuya asked as they leapt through the trees towards Sound. Her lack of swearing showed just how worried she was. Sakin sighed and glanced back towards Sasuke and his conditions. Jirubu and Kidomaru were bringing up the rear and keeping a careful eye on their charge. If there was the slightest sign of trouble, Kidomaru would use his web capture and Jirubu would use his chakra drain to subdue it. No, Tayuya, Sakin answered. No, I don't think this is a good idea. But you heard Lord Orochimaru's orders. Bring back Sasuke by any means necessary. We don't have a choice. Tayuya was still nervous, so Sakin continued. Look, once we're in Sound we'll have Lord Orochimaru there. He can handle any plan this punk may have. That seemed to reassure the flautist and the rest of the trip was made in silence. Scene break. Lord Orochimaru, the Sound 4 have returned. Kabuto said to his master. Excellent. The snake Sanin smirked beneath the bandages covering his new face. The third Hokage had done quite a number on him, and he was forced into a new body early. And they brought Sasuke? Kabuto hesitated. Yes sir, they did. However, there was an unforeseen complication. Orochimaru simply arched his brow, allowing Kabuto to continue. Sasuke apparently wouldn't leave without certain conditions being met. Since the Sound Four were ordered to make as little a spectacle as possible, they agreed and hoped you would be able to sort it out. Orochimaru stroked his chin. I see. And just what are these conditions you speak of? Kabuto gestured to the hallway behind him. It would be easier if you saw for yourself, my lord. Nodding to his second in command, the ex-Leaf ninja walked down the darkened halls towards the entrance chamber. He arrived to see his loyal Sound Four surrounding Sasuke Uchiha and his two teammates. Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto each dropped to one knee and bowed as soon as they saw the Sannin. They spoke in unison. Orochimaru, we pledge ourselves to you and your teachings if you will have us. Even with the bandages obscuring his face, Kabuto had never seen his master grin so widely before. Scene break. Are you sure you're okay with this? Sasuke asked as he, Sakura, and Naruto settled into their new accommodations. Sasuke had been very clear that his friends were to be in the same room as him. Naruto sighed as he sat down on his bed. I don't know, Sasuke. I feel like I'm almost betraying the old man by being here, but at the same time, I don't really care. It feels like the old man just isn't as important to me as he once was. Does that make me a horrible person? Sakura answered before Sasuke could. No, Naruto. No, it doesn't. The loops just keep going on and on. That means we constantly mature and change, while everyone else around us eventually just resets after a while. Eventually, we have to pull away from those people because in a way, they aren't the people they should be. People who were friends as kids might not get along as teenagers and so forth. It's even worse with us, because any bonds we make with people either disappear or get snapped back to a certain point. Believe me, Naruto, I know exactly how you feel. And indeed she did. As sad as it was, between the three of them, Sakura was the one with the largest circle of friends before the loops began. Sasuke never really associated with anyone before the loops, and people who Naruto cared about could be counted on one hand. Sakura not only had both of her parents, but a smattering of friends in the academy as well. Sakura had grown distant with all of them, though the one that hurt the most was Ino. Sakura had been thrilled when she learned ways to become friends with Ino again during the loops. This joy wasn't meant to last, however. Sakura was an immature brat during her academy days. Unfortunately, while Sakura grew out of this, Ino did not. That is to say, Ino took a very long time to grow out this phase. Due to the laid-back nature of her teammates and teacher, Ino didn't really have any serious motivations to become a strong ninja outside of family obligations. It usually took a harsh wake-up call, the most effective of which was either her teacher Asuma or her father, Inoichi, dying in the line of duty. Those events usually didn't happen until a few years into Ino's ninja career, so Sakura found it increasingly difficult to deal with a perpetually childish Ino. Sakura had, at one point, gotten the idea to train Ino herself, thereby making her stronger and prodding her along to be a better ninja. That plan had ended in disaster. The one time Sakura managed to convince Ino that she didn't have an ulterior motive to training her, Sakura made Ino competent enough to notice and dispel the sleep illusion cast by Kabuto during the invasion. The sleeping illusion was actually beneficial in a lot of ways, because it kept civilians and low-level ninja out of the fight. Without being asleep, Ino instantly became a target for the Sand and Sound ninja, and she had been nowhere near ready for that level of combat. Sakura had an extra funeral to attend that loop. Pulling herself back to the present, Sakura watched as Naruto processed her words. Maybe you're right, Sakura. It doesn't matter either way. Naruto sighed. Sasuke spoke. Don't say that, Naruto. Of course your feelings matter. Listen, if you want to pull out of this at any time, just say the word and we're gone. Sakura nodded her agreement. Naruto just shook his head. Sasuke, what you said that day was right. We can use this as an opportunity to gain valuable information on one of the Leaf's biggest threats. Not only that, but hopefully we'll find a way to remove the curse mark once and for all. This is too important to let my own feelings get in the way. We're ninja. The mission comes first. Bullshit, Sakura hissed. Don't you even dare start thinking like Danzo. Your emotions aren't a weakness, Naruto. You should know that better than anyone. I understand that you're disturbed by your lack of a connection to the third, but if you seriously only cared about the mission, then you wouldn't have insisted that the two of us join Sasuke. Sasuke joined in before Naruto could respond. And we're not just ninja, Naruto. We're time travelers. We can start over if something goes wrong. We have that luxury. We don't have to become emotionless drones that only focus on completing a mission. If something goes wrong, then we can go back and fix it. Sasuke's expression darkened. Take advantage of the loops, don't be so stupid as to try to do everything by yourself. We're in this together, and we always will be. Naruto gave a small smile. Thanks guys. I really needed that. Okay, enough about me. What kind of time frame are we looking at here? Since we managed to stall the sound for long enough on our journey here, Orochimaru had to use his possession jutsu on someone else. That gives us roughly 2.5 to 3 years before he's fit to try again. Sakura stated. Naruto nodded. Alright, then let's get some sleep. First thing tomorrow, we try out our plan to stop Orochimaru from taking Sasuke's unwilling body. Sasuke winced. Do you have to say it like that? Don't look at me. Blame Orochimaru who made a technique that is literally impossible to describe without sounding creepy. Scene break. Hey, Kabuto, wait up. Orochimaru's second-in-command turned at the sound of his name being called to find Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke jogging towards his direction. The three gave a small wave of greeting before Naruto started talking. We were hoping to run into you. Listen, are you busy? Kabuto was slightly unnerved by how casually Naruto was speaking to him, considering the last time the two had met Kabuto had plunged a knife through the blonde's hand. Not really, no. I was just heading down to the lab to check up on some experiments. Why? Naruto's grin widened. That's perfect. You see, the three of us have our own little experiment we want to try, and you're just the man to help us. Naruto patted a folder he was holding as he said this. Now Kabuto was intrigued. Really? Well then, follow me. Let's walk and talk. By the time they reached the labs, the three new ninjas of sound had explained what they were hoping to accomplish. So do you think it's possible? Sakura asked. Kabuto didn't respond immediately. He was rubbing his chin while flipping through Naruto's folder, deep in thought. It's certainly ambitious, I'll give you that. As for if it's possible, I'd say the chances of it working are less than 10%. Kabuto expected the three to look disappointed, instead Naruto seemed even happier. So you're saying there's a chance? The spectacled ninja was nonplussed. Yes, but it's such a small chance that it's not really worth trying. Naruto was undeterred. You said there was a chance. That alone makes it worth doing. How can science advance if we aren't willing to take risks on crazy ideas? And if a few dozen people happen to get hurt in the process, well, sacrifices have to be made. For science, who is Kabuto to argue with logic like that? Scene break. The three wayward leaf ninja had to admit, Orochimaru was an excellent teacher, something he shared with his fellow Sannin. However, unlike his teammates, Orochimaru had absolutely no qualms about teaching them top-of-the-line jutsu, strategies and illusions. In the Leaf Village, and every major village for that matter, there were very strict rules about what could and couldn't be taught to ninja of a certain level. Genin weren't meant to be trusted with their ranked jutsu, for instance. There were exceptions made if you were part of a clan or if your teacher was a particularly well-respected jonin. Hence why people like Guy and Kakashi could get away with teaching genin techniques like the Thousand Birds and the Lotus. If you wanted to get some real techniques, then you need to claw your way to the top. This was particularly frustrating for Naruto, since the village had such a prejudice against him. Sakura could make Anbu faster than Naruto would be promoted to Chunin in the Leaf Village. Even Tsunade and Jiraiya, who were much more willing to teach powerful techniques, had personal reasons for not just training super soldiers left and right. Tsunade, having lost so many people she cared about, was ruthless in testing and retesting a person's capabilities. If you slipped up even once, then you had to start over at the basics before Tsunade would train you further. To Tsunade, this ensured that whomever she trained wouldn't be unprepared for any form of situation, but it made training with her feel like pulling teeth. Jiraiya, on the other hand, simply didn't like teaching in general, since, in his mind, any person he trained only had tragedy awaiting them. The fourth Hokage sacrificed himself for the village, and the only other students Jiraiya had trained ended up either dead or being in charge of Akatsuki. Jiraiya had once admitted to Naruto that he considered pain, or rather Nagato, to be his greatest failure. Orochimaru, by contrast, had no such personal hang-ups. Instead, he seemed to enjoy teaching the most manic and destructive jutsu he could and watching Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke perform it. As much as he hated to admit it, Naruto enjoyed learning under Orochimaru. It was nice to be taught without having the feeling that the people who were teaching you would rather be doing anything but. Kakashi had never been interested in teaching Naruto, Sakura, or even Sasuke much of anything really. He only started really training Sasuke when the Uchiha needed the speed and power necessary to punch through Gaara's shield. Despite this, Naruto didn't really bear any ill will towards the man. Kakashi considered himself too good to bother wasting his time with teaching a couple of rookies and, in a way, he was. Kakashi is one of the strongest ninja in the village. He's been a Jonin since he was 12 and is highly respected both in the village and out. Fact of the matter is, Kakashi really is too skilled to be teaching rookies when he could be out doing top-ranked assignments. Kakashi only got assigned to Team 7 because of outside influence. In all reality, the same could be said of most of the other Jonin of the Rookie 12. Kakashi was on the team to help with Sasuke's Sharingan. Guy, who is as respected as Kakashi, only took on a team because he admired Lee's courage and wanted to help the boy achieve his dream of being a great ninja without ninjutsu. Asuma, who used to be one of the daimyo's personal bodyguards, was assigned because of his well-rounded abilities, and his kind personality would benefit the Ino Shikacho trio. While Naruto wished no offense to the woman, Kurenai was still a relatively new Jonin and was the only one who actually would have gotten the assignment of Jonin instructor under normal circumstances. The only other main teacher Naruto had was Jiraiya, whose personal hang-ups kept him from divulging all of his secrets. The only reason he even taught Naruto something as powerful as the Rasengan was because it was Naruto's birthright. It just felt nice to have a teacher who wasn't afraid to teach top-of-the-line jutsu. Even if the guy still gave Naruto the creeps on occasion, Orochimaru had insights that even masters of wind jutsu had been unable or unwilling to teach him. Think of the space between you and your target as a series of constantly moving particles. I want you to focus and push the particles forward. Don't gather air around you and blow the particles like a gust or slice through them with a vacuum blade. Take those particles between you and the wall and simply force them forward. Orochimaru instructed. It was harder than it sounded. Wind was a flowing element, so it required a lot of grace and flowing movement to bend the wind to your will. Orochimaru was effectively telling Naruto to forget all that and just force the very air to move. There is an important distinction between air and wind. Wind was air in movement that could be focused or bent, but there had to be movement. The standard way was to emit chakra into the air and allow it to begin moving in the way you required. Orochimaru was essentially telling Naruto to push the still air without actually moving it. Naruto took a deep breath and concentrated. He could feel the air around him just waiting for his command to move. Instead he focused on pushing without movement. He thrust his fist forward, emitting chakra from his palm that pushed against the air particles instead of blending with them. Naruto felt the air strike against the stone wall at the far end of the room. He was unprepared for a crater the size of Naruto's head to form from his attack. Naruto stared at the effects of what he had just done in shock. Orochimaru clapped his hands. Well done, Naruto. Now that you've gotten the basic premise, we'll work on control and precision. Naruto was staring at his hand in amazement. That was a lot stronger than I thought it would be. Air is a powerful element. Fire and lightning jutsus may be the flashiest and most visually impressive, but air has the potential to perform incredible damage. Remember, air is everywhere around us and is necessary for many things. One thing most people fail to realize about air is that if you push it, it has to go somewhere. Push with enough force and you can make a pocket of air the size of a fist hit with the force of a boulder. To demonstrate, Orochimaru thrust his own hand out. A crater much smaller than Naruto's, yet much deeper embedded into the wall. Naruto was amazed, but Orochimaru wasn't finished. Not only that, but people carry air inside their lungs just to breathe. Imagine, instead of pushing the air outside an opponent's body, you pushed the air from inside their lungs. Naruto's eyes went wide as he considered the implications. Good God, they would never see it coming. Ninja are trained to detect and counter external attacks, and internal one would catch them completely off guard. Naruto stared at the two craters in the wall. You could split a man in half with that kind of power. The snake Sannin grinned. Very good. Naruto frowned slightly as he gazed at the two stone craters. How is it possible for air to do so much damage to stone? Isn't wind weak to earth? Orochimaru chuckled. To most ninja, yes. However, a true master of an element can disregard the elemental rock-paper-scissors matchups. Naruto frowned in confusion. I don't understand. The snake Sannin continued. A true master of fire could ignite flames at the bottom of the ocean. A master of water could prevent electricity from conducting. A master of wind can penetrate even the toughest of stone. He gestured towards the recently made craters for emphasis. So you're saying that it's possible to be so strong you can overrule the laws of nature? Orochimaru grinned. That's an excellent way to describe it. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's get to work. Scene break. The Sound Four entered the mess hall, intending to get some food. They had just returned from a mission in Cloud and were after some much-needed fuel. They were slightly surprised to see Kabuto sitting with Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke. The four were absent-mindedly eating while they appeared to be conversing over a series of notes and diagrams spread out through the table. The chemical ratios are still off, Sakura said. We need more iron in the mix. Kabuto groaned and rubbed his eyes tiredly. I still don't understand why we have to make one from scratch. I have numerous samples that could. The entire purpose is to build a blank slate from base materials that could be made over and over again. Naruto argued. While I don't doubt that your samples are well cleaned and maintained, they will still have that slightest stain in them. It renders the experiment pointless. Sasuke noticed the Sound Four approaching and alerted the others. Kabuto was finished with his meal, so he began gathering up the various papers. I'll see what I can do about the chemical influx. I want you three to come by tonight so I can gather more samples from you. I want to start trying to mix your variables in to see how well the structure holds. The three nodded and waved goodbye to the silver-haired medic before turning to the Sound Four. Tayuya spoke. The fuck was that about? Sasuke shrugged. Just a little pet project we've got going on. It's not really important. Would you like to join us? The elite of the Sound Village were slightly surprised by the invitation, but saw no harm in accepting. It had been nearly a year since they had escorted the three to the village and they still knew very little about them. Constant missions and training hadn't left much time for socializing. Once they were situated, Naruto decided to get the ball rolling with his incredible tact and subtlety. So you all have curse marks, right? Sakura gave him a smack upside the head, but the Sound Four didn't seem offended. They even leaned forward to show their differing curse marks. Does Orochimaru choose the design of each curse mark? Sasuke asked. Sakin shrugged. As far as I know, he just lets the curse tailor make itself to each recipient. The heaven and the earth curses are the only type he ever consciously chooses to give. Sasuke resisted the urge to rub his neck where his own heaven mark was located. It was sealed for the time being, and Sasuke had no intention of calling on its power. Sakura seemed intrigued by Sakin's answer. If that's true, then the curse has to have some form of adaptation ability. I wonder what factors it takes in when changing. Chakra capacity and control? Elemental affinity? Maybe even something like personality or blood type? Not only that, but outside of the heaven and earth marks, is it possible for two people to have the same mark? If so, we could try to isolate the factors that created that mark and determine what causes the differences. Naruto interrupted Sakura's spiel. As much as I hate to dash your curse experimenting dreams, we have our own project that we kind of need to focus on. Sakura nodded in agreement, but looked forlorn. Kidomaru seemed uneasy. We're not going to wake up to find you hovering over our necks, are we? The three of them laughed at the thought, though realized the Sound Four wanted an answer. Perish the thought, Sakura said after getting herself under control. It's just a medic's curiosity. Jirubu spoke. That's exactly what Kabuto says when he wants to perform an experiment. One time I agreed to what he called a psychological test. I woke up 3 days later, butt naked in a hotel in Hidden Stone Village with a note that said I had 48 hours to get back to sound. This time, everyone burst into laughter, besides Jirubu. It's not funny. He pouted. His lips twitched upwards slightly as the laughter continued. Okay, it's a little funny. Man, that must have been a fun little experience. Naruto chuckled. Jirubu groaned. Oh, that's not even the worst of it. Kabuto had spent the previous few days running around Stone Village causing trouble disguised as me. I only had a few minutes to try to process what was going on before people started trying to break down the door. There were casino owners who claimed I had massive debts in all their establishments. Angry fathers who claimed I knocked up their daughters, and an entire ensemble of pet owners who claimed I had kidnapped their animals. There are still wanted posters of me up in stone. The entire table was now howling with laughter as Jirubu told his tale. Naruto and Kidomaru were practically choking, they were laughing so hard. With the ice broken, the 7 ninja began exchanging stories and jokes with each other as they ate their meals. Naruto checked the time and got to his feet. It's been real, guys, but we have to report to training. See you around? The Sound 4 gave nods of agreement and waved the new additions to sound off. As the 3 walked off, they just barely heard Kidomaru's question to Jirubu. So, did you actually knock up all those girls? Scene break. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke were currently practicing a new technique under Orochimaru's careful gaze. It was called the Maniac Contortion Jutsu. It allowed someone to bend, shift, stretch, or even shrink his or her body in a myriad of ways. When someone dodges a punch, they don't expect the same blow to whip around their head and strike from the opposite side. Team 7 was currently using it to play tag with one another, extending limbs to strike out at the others, while twisting their own bodies to avoid being tagged themselves. Orochimaru seemed to find the entire display incredibly entertaining. Kabuto entering the room interrupted their fun. Lord Orochimaru, we've just received word from our spies in the Sand Village. The cage has been captured by Akatsuki. Naruto instantly perked up as he realized Kabuto was talking about Gaara. Orochimaru frowned. I see. It seems that my old comrades are beginning to make their move. The 3 former Leaf Shinobi glanced at one another. They knew that Gaara's kidnapping was the starting point for a lot of hectic events to begin. It also meant that their 3-year time limit was almost up, and it was time to put their experiment to the test. Orochimaru, Naruto said, gaining the Sanin's attention. We have been working on something with Kabuto since we got here. We'd like to show it to you. Orochimaru was intrigued. He had been aware that the 4 were experimenting on something, but didn't know what. Kabuto assured him that it wouldn't harm Orochimaru and could only help him, so the snake let them have their privacy. Lead the way. The 5 of them made their way down to Kabuto's private lab. They gathered around a large glass container. Orochimaru knew these large pods were filled with chemicals to preserve bodies for observation and testing, though he couldn't make out what was actually in it due to the observation lights being switched off. Kabuto approached the control panel and switched on the lights. Orochimaru found himself staring at himself. Indeed, floating in the green liquid of the pod was what appeared to be an exact copy of Orochimaru. Okay, he said slowly. Start explaining. Naruto took the lead. You wanted Sasuke here so you could use your possession jutsu to take over his body and gain the Sharingan. Orochimaru chuckled, unconcerned with the implied threat in Naruto's voice. Guilty. And you must be aware of the fact that we have no intention of letting that happen. I had my suspicions. The yellow-eyed missing ninja subtly shifted his stance as he prepared for an ambush. So Sakura, Sasuke, Kabuto, and I have been working on a substitute. Orochimaru arched his brow. Now he was intrigued again. What you see before you is over 2.5 years of near constant work. Orochimaru spoke. So you made a corpse that looks like me? I failed to see how that helps anyone. I need a living body to possess. Sakura took over. We're well aware of that. This isn't a corpse. This is a cultivated vessel. The body in there is very much alive and it doesn't just look like you, it is you. The raven-haired ninja was growing irritated by the way they were skirting the issue. He focused his yellow gaze onto Kabuto. The medic cleared his throat nervously. You see, Lord Orochimaru, what we've done here is create a perfect soulless vessel for you to occupy. It took an incredible pooling of Sakura's and my own medical expertise, but by breaking down a human anatomy into base materials, mixing the material with Naruto's incredible regenerative powers and using your DNA as a baseline or rather a framework, we were able to literally grow you a body. Now it was Sasuke's turn. It has no soul, so you won't have to constantly suppress another person's will. And since it's your own body instead of someone else, it won't naturally fight against you, so the possession should last a good deal longer than 3 years. Orochimaru stroked his chin thoughtfully while the four waited to see his reaction. This is indeed an incredible achievement. He began amicably. However, the Sharingan is too valuable a prize to give up on. I've waited years to gain my own, and I will not be deterred. To Orochimaru's surprise, the four in front of him actually grinned. You don't have to give up the Sharingan, Lord Orochimaru, Kabuto said. He began typing in commands on the control panel. The cultivated vessel opened its eyes. Instead of the yellow snake eyes he was expecting, Orochimaru was staring into a pair of red Sharingan. Because we literally grow the body from scratch, Kabuto explained. We can infuse it with any bloodline we wish. Assuming we have a decent sample of said bloodline and can sufficiently break it down. We took a lot of cues and tips from your experiments with the first Hokage's wood jutsu. Orochimaru's jaw was now hanging open in shock, disbelief plastered across his face. He opened and closed his mouth a few times, but failed to make a sound. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura had accomplished some amazing things during these time loops. Each of them considered shocking the snake Sannin utterly speechless as one of their most impressive feats. Finally, Orochimaru managed to find his voice. So you can create the Sharingan? Sakura decided to answer. Not create, exactly. More like replicate. We couldn't have done this if it wasn't for Sasuke allowing his own DNA to be extracted and his eyes constantly examined to break down the specific genes that create the Sharingan. Then we plant those genes into the cultivated vessel and allow it to grow naturally with the body. I don't think natural can be used to describe anything we've done here. Naruto quipped. Sakura ignored him. It's not just the Sharingan either. The cultivated vessel is essentially a blank slate that can be painted with bloodlines. We just need a proper sample and understanding of it. Though, not all bloodlines get along well with each other. We tried mixing in Kimimara's dead bone pulse bloodline and the whole thing blew up in our faces. We can make a vessel with one or the other, just not both. Orochimaru now stared at the four in front of him with wonder in his eyes, unable to fully believe what they had given him. Is it ready to be used? He asked. Kabuto checked the screens monitoring the vessel. I just need to run some final checkup scans to make sure everything is in proper working order, but it's just a formality at this point. I can have it ready by tonight. Orochimaru composed himself and nodded. Good. Sasuke, Sakura, Naruto. I want you to meet me in the main training hall in 3 days, understand? The three nodded. You're dismissed. Scene break. The three entered the training hall to find Orochimaru waiting for them. He watched them enter with his newly acquired Sharingan. He was dressed differently than they were used to seeing him. Instead of the loose black and beige shirt and robe with a large purple rope belt, he was dressed more like a traditional Jonin. Black pants with combat boots, a black Jonin jacket, with straps across the chest as opposed to scroll pouches, and a hidden sound headband across his forehead. The three took in the new look. They had never seen Orochimaru in official ninja clothes or with his headband. Hell, they had thought the rope and robes were the official ninja clothes for sound given how everyone seemed to wear them. With the new clothes and the Sharingan, Orochimaru actually looked quite different. Though, this may have something to do with the serious expression he wore. Even in battles to the death Orochimaru wore an expression of smug glee more often than not. The way he regarded the three was definitely something new. The new look suits you, Orochimaru. Sakura commented casually. Orochimaru's expression didn't change. I find myself contemplating what to do with you three. He said slowly. I intended to simply kill you two off once I possessed Sasuke, but your experiment has rendered that plan moot. More than that, you've proven yourselves to be too valuable to simply toss away. Team 7 wasn't sure what to say to that, so simply stayed quiet. Orochimaru began pacing. It's become increasingly apparent that you all can actually be useful beyond simple amusement and a temporary body. I have debated with myself whether or not to allow you access to my future plans, and this new vessel has sealed the deal for me. He focused on the three. You three are officially my new apprentices, and that means it's time to stop holding back on your training. Now the three were confused. Holding back? Sasuke asked. Orochimaru laughed. Did you really think I would seriously train 3 people who I intended to kill? You three have grown beautifully under my tutelage, but if you think you know even a fraction of what I do, then you're delusional. Don't mistake my meaning, you all are easily a ranked ninja. However, it's about time you learned the difference between an A- ranked ninja and an S ranked ninja. Orochimaru dropped into a battle stance, his new Sharingan whirling in his eyes. I want you three to come at me with full strength. Don't hold back. The three time travelers glanced at each other. They weren't sure exactly what Orochimaru was planning, but decided to go along with it for the moment. Sakura shot forward, her fist pulled back to deliver a super-powered punch. Orochimaru ducked beneath the blow and grabbed her passing wrist. The pink-haired girl was pulled off her feet and swung around like a rag doll. Orochimaru spun her 3 times to gain momentum, before slamming her into the ground with enough force to cause a crater. Sasuke, charged with a full-body lightning blade, moved in on Orochimaru. Rather than get close, Sasuke focused the lightning surrounding his body into a blade of pure electricity. He slashed at Orochimaru. The blade could extend at will and had no actual weight, allowing Sasuke to swing as fast as his arm could possibly move. It wasn't fast enough. With inhuman speed, the snake Sannin sped directly at Sasuke. Before he could even finish the slash, Orochimaru was directly in front of him. Sasuke expected the full cloak of lighting to protect him, he was wrong. Orochimaru seemed to completely disregard the electricity and grabbed the Uchiha's arm. The Sannin slammed his fist directly into Sasuke's elbow joint, dislocating it. The pain caused Sasuke to lose his concentration and the lightning blade dissipated. Sasuke pumped chakra into his lightning cloak to try and force Orochimaru back. Once again the snake seemed to flip physics the bird and latched onto Sasuke's shoulder, not even wincing from the electricity. Unable to free himself from the Sannin's death grip, Sasuke couldn't dodge as Orochimaru proceeded to viciously bombard his abdomen with his fist over and over. The last Uchiha fell to his knee, hacking blood, as the lightning cloak vanished. Orochimaru turned to see 5 pairs of Naruto facing him, each pair armed with a big ball Rasengan. Before the blondes could react, Orochimaru ran straight at the pair in the center. The two attempted to nail the Sannin with their technique, only for Orochimaru to drop to the ground on all fours. His head twisted in a way that shouldn't be physically possible and catapulted his sword, Kusanagi, at the Naruto on the left and the pair on the far right. The sword plunged into the original Naruto's shoulder, burying itself over halfway through his body. Naruto was about to pull the blade out when he realized Orochimaru's tongue was wrapped around the handle. Oh no! Thunder style. Shockwave. Electricity surged from the snake's tongue into his sword, then into Naruto. The Jinchuriki screamed as his nerves were fried, and he quickly lost control of the large Rasengan. The swirling ball of chakra ruptured, the resulting blast destroying Naruto's clones as well. Earth style. Blade barrage. Orochimaru turned to see Sakura back on her feet. Both her hands were flat on the ground and over a dozen stone spears erupted from beneath her and flew at the Sannin. Rather than dodge the spears, Orochimaru instead melted into the ground. Sakura slammed her fist into the ground, causing massive chunks of the floor to fly into the air. "You can't hide below from me," she shouted. "Then how about above?" Sakura's head shot upward to see the top half of the Sannin melt out one of the floor chunks she had sent into the air. Sakura tried to ready a jutsu, but Orochimaru beat her to the punch. Water style. Dark rain. Pebbles of hardened water slammed down upon Sakura. The droplets had enough force to punch straight through her skin. She only barely managed to avoid a fatal blow by protecting her head with her arms, but she was now bleeding profusely from multiple wounds. Orochimaru pulled himself from the stone chunk, nimbly dodging a series of kunai thrown at him. Sasuke was pressed into the far corner of the room, so he would have the entire room in his field of vision. His hands were extended before him, held together to form a triangle. Thunder style. Erratic electric. A condensed beam of lightning shot from the Uchiha's hands towards the Sannin. Orochimaru easily sidestepped the attack, only to be forced to jump when the beam bounced off the wall and reflected back at him. Sasuke fired off another 3 beams in different directions, no doubt using his Sharingan to calculate the angles of reflection. Unfortunately for Sasuke, Orochimaru had Sharingan of his own now. Not even moving from his spot, Orochimaru simply clapped his hands together. Earth style. Buddhist palm. 4 large hands sprouted from the ground and intercepted each beam, reflecting them all back at Sasuke. Cursing loudly, Sasuke dove along the wall to avoid his own attack. Orochimaru was on top of him instantly. Before Sasuke could even contemplate attacking, the Sannin nailed Sasuke's head with a high kick that slammed his cranium into the wall. Without even turning, the Sannin's hand shot out and caught his Kusanagi blade, making sure to avoid the wind-enhanced blade and grab the handle. He turned towards Naruto, who had just thrown the blade. Naruto thrust his hand forward, pushing the air towards Orochimaru. Wind style. Unrelenting force. Orochimaru held out his free hand, not even bothering to dodge. Wind style. Unrelenting force. Naruto was shocked to not only feel his own attack ripped apart like it wasn't there, but to be thrown bodily across the room as Orochimaru's much stronger attack hit. Slowly, almost casually, the Sannin dispelled the wind chakra surrounding his blade and placed the tip in his mouth, proceeding to swallow the weapon whole. Once his sword was properly stored away, Orochimaru idly noted that Sasuke was no longer lying at his feet. He looked across the room where all 3 of his opponents were now standing. Sakura stood in the center holding the front end of a ludicrously large spinning pillar. The giant stone pillar was held horizontally above their heads, suspended up by wind courtesy of Naruto. The massive gyro was filled with hundreds of spinning teeth, surrounded by dozens of blades on the outside that formed a single, deadly point. Beneath the moving earth and stone, sparks of electricity were visible, as it seemed to be channeling through the entire contraption. The 3 spoke as one. 7 style. Ballistic drill blitz, and launched their group jutsu at the snake Sannin. The massive pillar tore through the air as it closed in on him. Orochimaru held out his hand, index and middle finger extended. A single ball of light formed just in front of his fingertips. Fire style. Incineration. A beam of white heat, barely thicker than a needle, pierced straight through the drill and the wall behind it. The group jutsu exploded as the indescribable heat of the beam melted the stone pillar, causing the lightning within it to violently detonate. Naruto would later swear that he could feel the very air catch fire. The force of the explosion slammed into Team 7 and they were violently flung into the wall, before everything went black. Scene break. Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto slowly regained consciousness. They were unsurprised to find themselves in the medical wing. Once all 3 were awake and properly alert, Orochimaru made his presence known. "Now do you understand the difference between an A- rank and an S rank?" he asked. "That was insane," Sakura growled. "We've fought S-rank ninja before and we were never beaten that badly." Orochimaru arched a disbelieving eyebrow at this, but commented anyway. "If you truly did fight against someone of S rank, which I very much doubt, then they most likely didn't fight full out. There is one critical weakness that all S rank, myself included, share: arrogance. When you command such incredible power, it's easy to disregard others as not being a threat. This is a critical mistake. A knife into your heart will more than likely kill you if it's from a genin or a jonin. I am very aware of this weakness, but still allow my own arrogance to often get the better of me. I have you 3 to thank for reminding me of this critical flaw." Seeing their confused faces, he continued. "I thought of you all as not even being close to my level, and I think I demonstrated that you aren't. However, consider for a moment what would have happened if I fought all 3 of you without taking you seriously. I would toy with and mock you, intentionally avoiding ending the fight for my own amusement and keeping my best jutsu in storage. If I hadn't been taking you 3 seriously from the start, then that last jutsu would have taken me completely off guard and more than likely kill me." The Sannin allowed that to sink in for a moment. "You 3 created this cultivated vessel, accomplishing something I had never even thought of. It reopened my eyes to the fact that I am not infallible and it's very possible for others to potentially outwit me. Thanks to you 3, as long as I have this body, I won't be making that mistake again." Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura's minds reeled at the information they were receiving. Sakura was right. They had faced S-rank enemies in the past. What she failed to mention was that, more often than not, it was Orochimaru himself who they fought. Since he always started skulking around the village during the Chunin exams, it only took a few quick months after team selections to find him. The 3 of them had taken advantage of having an Akatsuki-level ninja to test themselves against. While Orochimaru usually won, he had never beaten them that badly, not even on their first time through. At least they could damage the snake in some way, shape or form. This time they couldn't even lay a finger on him. If what Orochimaru was saying was true, then Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura weren't nearly as strong as they thought they were. Not enough to take on Akatsuki at any rate. Sasuke understood what Orochimaru was saying better than his friends, having actually experienced a savage beat-down from an S-class enemy. Back during the dark days when Naruto and Sakura were killed and he set out on his own. Sasuke had had a hand in killing a few members of Akatsuki. He had even personally killed Orochimaru, although he deliberately waited until Orochimaru was too weak to properly defend himself. Despite this, when Sasuke fought Madara, he wasn't outmatched so much as completely out of his league. Sasuke now realized that Madara didn't have the same arrogance that his comrades in Akatsuki did. Maybe it was his long life seeing entire empires rise and fall, or maybe he was simply that smart, but for whatever the reason, Madara wasn't foolish enough to hold back. When he fought Sasuke, he didn't waste time with posturing or taunting. He quickly and effectively decimated Sasuke, not giving the younger Uchiha proper time to even form a strategy. This also confirmed something that he had suspected for a while: Itachi let Sasuke win in their duel to the death. Orochimaru could see that his lesson was taking hold on his 3 new apprentices. So now that you know the truth, what do you intend to do? It was Naruto who answered for the group. We're going to get stronger. Strong enough to take on any S-class ninja who has the guts to take us seriously. His friends nodded in agreement. The familiar grin found its way back on Orochimaru's face. Good answer. We'll begin as soon as you 3 are back on your feet. Seeing the confusion on their face, he elaborated. As I said, I've yet to train you all seriously yet, but that's about to change. Rest up, because soon we begin your real training. Orochimaru turned around and headed for the door. He paused to speak over his shoulder. Make no mistake, I intend to make you 3 invincible. And with that, he was gone.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.